And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are obviously well underway in the first C final of the day. This is the women's youth single. We have 5 crews on the water in lane 1, Hannah Brahm from Dayton. Lane 2, Gabrielle Amato from Row House. Lane 3, Josephine Grady from Advanced Community Rowing Association out of New York. In lane 4, Jackie Ognovich from 8PG in North Carolina. And then in lane 6, Maddie Gibson from Ridgewood, located in New Jersey. Right now, as they wind it up coming into the final 250 meters, we're finding them in lane order. So Hannah Brahm with the lead, about 1 length over Gabrielle Amato. Interesting to note, Amato will be rowing for Haiti's national team this summer, so great job to her, a young, internationally experienced oarswoman. She is leading just slightly over Josephine Grady from ACRA. And then in lane 4, back by a bit of open water, Jackie Ognovich from HPG. And then in the final 5th place position, out in lane 6, Maddie Gibson from Ridgewood.
Pretty close up front here, even in this C final. So last race of the year for all of these athletes. Hannah Brahm is going to win the C final and finish 13th in the nation in the women's single. Behind her in 2nd place will be Gabrielle Amato from Miami International Row House. And then from ACRA in Nyack, New York, Josephine Grady will finish in 3rd place. Connected there with Gabrielle Amato at the finish line. In 4th place will be Jackie Ognovich from High Point. She rode in the women's pair last year at Youth Nationals and actually was in the A final. So she decided she wanted to scull this year, and she made it here and finished 4th in the C final. And our last athlete coming across the finish line out there in lane 6 from Ridgewood. 3rd at the Philly City Championships, Maddie Gibson. So that was the first C final of our 2018 U.S. Rowing Youth National Championships here at Lake Natoma. The men's youth single is already on the race course. So as Maddie comes across the finish line and we start to get a good picture here of the men's youth singles, let me set the field for you. It's 6 boats. In lane 1, we have Drew Ellis from White Rock. In lane 2, we have Liam Fisher from Commencement Bay. In lane 3, the only member of the Hatboro Horsham High School rowing team, Yoni Gillett. In lane 4, Alexander Robertson from Gainesville Area Rowing. Lane 5, Nathaniel Mishler from Olympic Peninsula. And in lane 6, William Kane from White Marsh.
All right, and your early placement here as they approach 500 meters in, it will be Alexander Robertson from Gainesville area with a lead already with a bit of open water over the other 5 scullers. Over in lane 1, Drew Ellis from White Rock. He's making his 2nd appearance here at the Youth Nationals. The first time it was in the quad for him last year, and now he's transitioning over to the single. So great job for him as he progresses through this C-level final. So he's in that 2nd place position, leading just slightly over leading just slightly over lane 3. That's Yanni Gillett from Hatboro Horsham. Again, that's what David said. He is the only member of his team, so awesome representation of how strong that club is. He's got a slight lead over lane 2, Liam Fisher out of Commencement Bay. And then moving over to the outside, William Kane from White Marsh is in the 5th place position. White Marsh is a club just outside of Philadelphia. And then in the 6th place spot, Nathaniel Mishler from Olympic Peninsula.
Yeah, Conshohocken, Pennsylvania is where White Marsh is located. But you see a good, on the right side of the screen there, a good shot of Alexander Robertson from Gainesville Area Rowing. He also rowed in the quad here at the Youth National Championships. So one of our athletes doing double duty. In 2nd place is that boat in lane 1 from White Rock, Drew Ellis. And he finished 7th in the quad last year. As you were saying, he rode in that quad last year at this event. And then it's Yoni Gillett ahead of Liam Fisher. So those are your top 4. And then panning out to see lanes 5 and 6. And it does look like lane 6, William Kane is ahead of lane 5, Nathaniel Mishler from Olympic Peninsula. So that's your entire field coming down here in the C final of the men's youth single here at the 2018 U.S. Rowing Youth National Championships. And they're past halfway. They're into that 3rd 500, almost at 1250. So about 750 meters left for these singles into this headwind.
And important to note that Although this is that sea level final, they're going for ranking at this point. This is for spots 13 through 18th in the nation. So just to get to this point, there's been a whole lot of racing this spring. Certainly for a lot of these, you know, it's leading up, their career has been leading up to being able to make an appearance at the Youth National Championship. So rowing in the single, an incredibly difficult, mentally challenging event. All the way through the single can be a little bit lonely, but what they're proving is that they've got this high level of technical proficiency, really high level of fitness. These guys doing a great job as they come towards us now in almost their last 500 meters.
That's right, and moving up a little bit is Drew Ellis from White Rock all the way up there in lane 1, and he's brought it to even with Alexander Robertson from Gainesville Area Rowing, so they're kind of fighting it out now, and they will in the last 500 meters, but you see how close it is. Right on the tip of the stern of those two boats is lane 2's Liam Fisher from Commencement Bay. He goes to Gig Harbor High School in the Seattle area, and you can just see all four of those boats, how close they are. I mean, with 500 meters left in a single, anything can happen. But you were saying they are, I wouldn't call them necessarily lonely out there, but they don't have anybody in the boat verbally or physically pushing them along. This is definitely a solo endeavor, and your new leader is Drew Ellis from White Rock in lane 1.
All right, so coming into the spectator area, Drew Ellis taking over for that lead spot. He's being pushed as well by Fisher from Commencement Bay. Fisher almost attempting to pull up even with Robertson from Gainesville area. And then just off of the stern deck of Liam Fisher's boat, there will be Yoni Gillett from Hatboro Horsham High School. Continuing in 5th, William Kane from White Marsh, and then in 6th, Nathaniel Mishler from Olympic Peninsula.
So those are your 6 boats here, going for places 13 through 18 in the nation. Let's give them a hand as they come down, whether they're your teammate or not. We do have a lot of people down here at the beach. This is the last race of high school careers for some, the ones that are seniors, and they're really going to lay it all out here in the last 30 strokes to the line. And it does look like still in lane 1, hanging on is Drew Ellis. Will he be able to hang on? He's starting to get a big charge from Liam Fisher in lane 2.
Robertson still there out in lane 4. He's also a threat for that second place spot, but it looks as if Ellis and Fisher are going to walk away from him and come in first and second in this event, but it's coming all the way down towards the line as Fisher really puts on a big push here in the final 20 strokes. A little bit of wind pushing these guys around, but nothing that they can't handle. And indeed, Fisher making a big push. It will be very close all the way to the line between Fisher and Ellis. Almost a buzzer shot here.
Oh, no. A little half crab at the end by Liam Fisher.
But still a great finish.
Unbelievable. It was still a photo finish, and I can't even call it. It was that close at the finish line between those two. Amazing, amazing race in the C final as William Kane comes across the finish line representing White Marsh, and Nathaniel Mishler coming across the finish line representing Olympic Peninsula. That was the C final of the men's single. And what a finish.
And as you look out at these singles, you can see that they're kind of being pushed back upwards towards the course. So that's how strong that headwind is right now. It's going to slow down our times this morning, so not really good to take a look at what their times were from earlier. You can't compare as the conditions change. But these are not really what I would consider challenging conditions, just a little bit slower. It's a little bit longer of a race for these guys.
All right, the next C final we have on the race course is the women's pair. Let me set the lineup for you as we get the camera shot down there. In lane 1, we have Triangle from Raleigh, North Carolina. In lane 2, we have Sarasota Scullers. In lane 3, we have NorCal. Lane 4 is Atomic from Oak Ridge, Tennessee. Lane 5 is Row America Rye, and in lane 6 is Pacific.
All right, so we've gotten off to a good start here with these 6 boats. All boats moved past the breakage point. They're running cleanly. One of the things we look for in the small boats and a boat like the pair is any sort of steering corrections coming from the referees. We saw some of that earlier in the day in the semifinals, but right now we're not seeing any of that coming from the refs. So clean rowing here from all crews as they head towards that first 500-meter mark.
Yeah, and they're rowing this very difficult to row boat, the pair. And yes, they have another athlete in there pushing them physically, sometimes verbally, but it is a very difficult boat to row because it amplifies mistakes. It's the hardest of the sweep events by a mile. So it's really awesome to see at the youth level, the high level of rowing in the pair. And we're seeing that. You got a good shot there of Sarasota Scullers on the left and on the right triangle. And they race against each other at the Southeast Youth Championships. And the Sarasota Scullers boat actually won the Florida State Championship, and they won the Southeast region. So Triangle's trying to turn that result around as they finish behind Sarasota Scullers at the Southeast region. You just saw the bow women from Sarasota Scullers craning their neck to see where that Triangle boat is. And look how close it is, all the rest of the boats. This is amazing.
Right, so as these guys head up towards 500 meters in, they're just shy of that. Lane 1 Triangle is going to be your leader, sitting about 2 seats over Sarasota Scullers. Back to them by 2 seats, it will be NorCal. So NorCal in that 3rd place position, sitting just ahead of Atomic. Atomic maybe 1 seat over Row America Rye. And then back off at the stern deck of Row America Rye will be Pacific. So Pacific in the 6th place position. So right now we're finding them in lane order, but with pretty close racing here between lanes 5 and lane 4. That's Row America Rye in lane 5 and then Atomic. Those are the 2 closest crews in terms of spacing between them as we head up to 750 meters.
Yeah, a lot of connection, but it is a back and forth in lanes 4 and 5, Atomic and Row America Rye. The boat from NorCal sitting in 3rd place has 2 seniors. One's going to Princeton, one's going to Penn. And then in the Atomic boat, one of those women is going to the Coast Guard Academy. So we have some seniors here. Last youth race on the race course here at Lake Natoma. And that's what we see year in and year out, is a lot of people ending their rowing careers at the Youth National Championships. And we still have a leader out in lane 1 Triangle, still leading Sarasota Scullers. Sarasota Scullers maybe about a half a length over 3rd place NorCal.
And then the team that's on the move will be lane 5, Row America Rye. They've almost pulled themselves up even with NorCal for that 3rd place position. They are now almost 1 full length over Atomic Boat Club. Atomic also 1 full length over Pacific out in lane 6. So one of the things that that David had alluded to in terms of how difficult these boats are to row, they are responsive to any sort of mistakes or bobbles that you might have, but they're also incredibly responsive to any sort of move. So what we'll generally see is a lot of pretty big movements between different spots on the race course. When one crew decides to go, that boat can just take off. So we'll take a look for that as we head a little bit past 1,000, or almost just shy, I think, of 1,000 meters to go. We'll get a little bit better shot as we get an overhead from one of our drone cameras. So if you're watching the Jumbotron, we were really able to find some really nice footage here today. We've got 2 drone cameras out on the water and then one coming from a launch, so we're getting some really great footage for you guys.
So we have 2 regional champions in this C final, so that's just how tough it is here at US Rowing Youth Nationals. You have the Southwest champ Pacific in lane 6, you have the Southeast champ Sarasota Scullers in lane 2, and then you have the 2nd place finisher in New York, Row America Rye, in lane 5. And they're here in a C final going for places 13 to 18 in the country. And we're past halfway. They're in the 3rd 500 are these women's pairs. And as you were saying, Adrian, they do really respond. The pair does respond to these moves. So sometimes if you're taking a 10 or a 15 stroke power move, you might really see different speed. And you can make up some ground pretty quickly, or if you shift the rating. So you're exactly right. They are more responsive in that respect. And we'll see what happens in this 3rd 500 and where the crews kind of stack up as they come into 500 to go.
That's right. So almost a little bit shy of 500 meters in. The pairs, again, one of the slower boats on the course, can be a little bit heavy, so oftentimes these athletes are some of the strongest on the team. To be able to move that boat efficiently and effectively, it sometimes helps to be a little bit bigger, put a lot of weight and power behind the oar, and these ladies demonstrating exactly what it takes to move that boat down the race course quickly. So just coming up to 500 meters to go, it looks as if Triangle holds on to that top spot over Sarasota Scullers. NorCal right there in the mix. Row America Rye also looks like they're having a good race out there in lane 5, just ahead of Atomic, and then with Pacific in the 6th place position. So boats are going to be coming into the spectator area in about a minute, and they'll be coming into their final 500 meters.
So the same thing goes for if you kind of miss a stroke or you take a stroke off. You really can't take a stroke off in the pair, because if you're on one side and you go 0 pressure and your pair partner goes 100% pressure, you're going to immediately lose your course. So it's just a very technical boat to row. A lot of teams train in them for that reason, to really get a good feel for what they're actually doing when they row. But here we go, almost 500 meters left in the C final of the women's youth pair. And it does look like Triangle's still out in front in lane 1. Sarasota Sculler's still right there. But they're all pretty bunched up from my eye. Not anybody really off the back too far. They're all kind of in the mix. So if we can get an overhead shot, we'll let you know where they stand. 13th in the country, and maybe trying to lay down a time, although probably not in this headwind that's competitive with the A and B finals tomorrow, but they're going to win this thing, it looks like. 25 strokes from the line. Triangle in their orange and blue here, or orange and black, close to the beach. You can see the advantage that they have. Sarasota Scullers in the green boat in lane 2, ahead of that boat from NorCal. NorCal put on a big push there. We're also watching Row America Rye on the outside in that dark boat with the red, dark blue, and white blades that's trying to get into the mix. But it does look like it's probably going to stay where it is, although Pacific, we couldn't see them in that shot, but Pacific, I think, is a little bit past Atomic, so Pacific sitting in 5th place. But crossing the line first here is Triangle.
And here comes Sarasota Scullers, a couple of lengths of open water back, with NorCal just behind them. And then Row America Rye off of the stern deck. And then Pacific having made a big push in that final 500 meters to push themselves into that 5th place position, just over Atomic. Okay, and racing is well underway in the sea-level final for the men's pair. We are just past 500 meters in. Let me give you your lane assignments. In lane 1, Nashville. Lane 2, Wilmington Youth. Lane 3, PNRA Mercer. Lane 4, Sammamish. Lane 5, Manhasset High School. And lane 6, Vashon Island.
And you can see Manhasset there on the right side. They're out a bit, along with, I think, lane 1 that's actually not quite, well, nope, that's Manhasset, and they are way out in front of everyone else. Look how close it is behind them. It's really
Manhasset
4 boats
really
straight across.
Has quite a lead here already with open water, and then it's really kind of bow ball to bow ball between 4
down the race course, try to finish 13th in the nation. You see them coming past that white buoy there. That's the halfway point in this race. So to the 1,000-meter point, halfway, it's Manhasset High School with a full length over Nashville. Nashville with maybe a couple of feet, maybe 10 feet at most over PNRA Mercer. And then it's really close between Sammamish and Wilmington Youth, but still connected with the 2nd and 3rd place boats.
And Vashon Island continuing in 6th on the outside. So again, one of the things you see is how responsive these boats are. So when these guys decide to make a statement and make a move, it happens very quickly. And right now, just past 1,000 meters, the guys from Manhasset doing a nice job holding off what's happening behind them. So Nashville took a big move there at the halfway point, pulled themselves into that 2nd place position, but now they're looking at a challenge from PNRA Mercer.
Yeah, that's right. And I'm looking at the stroke ratings. They're relatively similar. PNRA Mercer slightly higher than Nashville, but Wilmington is now starting to move in between the two. look at this racing. And they're side by side. They can sort of feel each other. They can kind of peripherally see one another, and they know that the other boats are right there. And it gives them an adrenaline boost that makes them start to push. So Nashville maybe a couple feet ahead of Wilmington. Wilmington maybe a foot ahead of PNRA Mercer. But Manhasset continues to stay out in front. You just see their wake there coming through on the camera on the right side.
And then also still in the picture is Sammamish. So Sammamish fell back just a little bit. They are in that 5th place position. Vashon continuing in 6th, but Sammamish still within contact to these other top boats. So Manhasset way out in front, but then Nashville, Wilmington, PNRA Mercer all vying for that 2nd, 3rd place position.
That's right, and you're seeing the bows charge at us, and we're going to have a drone shot from above here pretty soon. But it is Manhasset out there in lane 5. We haven't seen too many boats win from lane 5. They're from Port Washington, New York, and they're trying to go start to finish. They put themselves out with a little bit of amazing race. If this thing was 1,600 meters, they would have won it all the way to that point. But wow, what a second half for Wilmington.
But Manhasset's not letting it go. They are responding as well. So we're going to keep our eye on them as they come all the way to the finish line. I know that is hard to race out in lane 5 and find your closest competition in lane 1 or lane 2. So they've got to keep track of what's happening there. And if that bowman is savvy, they're taking up the stroke rate. They'll take this all the way to the finish line as they get challenged by Wilmington, challenged by Nashville. It will be Wilmington with their bow first across the line and super close between Manhasset and Nashville. It's going to be Nashville in that 2nd place position. And then Manhasset, followed by Sammamish, and then PNRA Mercer and Vashon Island. That wraps up the sea level final for the men's pair. These crews claiming 13th through 18th in the nation.
That was an awesome race. You won't
Boat
see a
tricks.
second half like that all the time. That was an amazing, heroic second half from Wilmington.
All right, here we go. Back up to the start. This is the sea level final for the women's lightweight youth double. In lane 1, Saratoga. Lane 3, Conestoga. Lane 3, City Island. Lane 4, Agnes Irwin. Lane 5, Newport. So 500 meters across, we've got 5 boats jockeying for position for the lead. I think Saratoga is pushing themselves into a pretty solid positioning right now in that 1st place spot, sitting 2 seats over Conestoga. Conestoga pushing themselves, trying to get a little bit of open water and move away from City Island. A little bit off the back will be Agnes Irwin. They're in 6th right now. And then in the 4th place position will be Newport, just ahead or maybe even with Redwood Scullers.
Really a match race going on between Saratoga and Conestoga right now. It's a little bit of a mouthful to say that, but it's only separated by maybe 10 feet. It does look like Saratoga wants to take a little bit more of a lead, but you have to understand 10 feet is not much in these boats. Once they find a little power move, they can make it even in 5-10 strokes if they want to sometimes. So we'll see what happens as it shapes up down the race course. But these 2 boats going at one another in lanes 1 and 2 have pulled away from the rest of the field. It's open water back to 3rd place, which is City Island from the Bronx, New York. And City Island has almost a full length on basically dead heated in lanes 5 and 6. Newport from Delaware. You have 2 athletes there that are seniors. One's going to LaSalle, one's going to Harvard. And then in lane 6, Redwood Scullers boat, they are dead level there with Newport.
And coming into this headwind, one thing that's important to note for these lightweight rowers is that a high stroke rating, I'm not sure really does you many favors. So it's really a matter of a good race plan where you can dig deep, use your body weight with what you have, and be as efficient as possible with your length to try and move that boat. So hopefully some of these ladies that might be at a little higher stroke rate don't burn out, because this is going to be a longer race than what they had earlier in this event. So Saratoga doing a nice job, still sitting in the same positioning in front of Conestoga. Conestoga still trying to shake City Island as we move into the 2nd half of this race.
And maybe moving past Newport is Redwood Scullers, but only by a couple of feet out here in lanes 5 and 6. I don't believe Agnes Irwin is actually in the race, so I think it's a 5-boat race here because I haven't seen them, and I saw the officials launch sitting in that lane. But look at this race up front. Or no, excuse me, this is a race in lanes 5 and 6. Amazing race right in front of the camera there between these two boats. It's probably 5 feet right now for Redwood Scullers over Newport from Delaware, panning to the third place and second place and first place crews there. So you see Saratoga with about a length advantage over second place Conestoga. Conestoga with only about a deck over a pretty hard charging City Island.
All right, so great racing just past 1,000 meters, approaching 750. Again, not a whole lot of big moves happening quite yet. I think we're going to see that as they come into the final 500 meters. But now there is open water for Saratoga as they push towards the 500 meter to go line. It will be an open water lead for Saratoga over Conestoga. And Conestoga trying to hold off a good move here by City Island. Again, as we said, I wasn't aware that lane 4, there was no crew. We just couldn't see them on the picture, but it looks like Agnes Irwin is not racing in this event. So back in the 5th place position, it will be, or 4th place position, it will be Redwood Scullers. They had just a slight lead over Newport right next to them in lane 5. So here we go, 750 meters to go. Women's lightweight youth double coming at us and almost into the spectator area.
That's right. Another good shot of this side-by-side lanes 5 and 6. On the right is lane 5 Newport, and on the left was Redwood Scullers. And we're panning back over, and then you see the empty lane, and then this good battle going on. It's getting even closer, second and third place between Conestoga and City Island. City Island starting to track down Conestoga a little bit here in the adjacent lanes, but they are about a length of open water behind your leader, Saratoga. And those teammates that are going to continue to be teammates in college, that's kind of an interesting story. That's a long time to row with somebody. Obviously, they really enjoy being in this boat together, and they're doing it. They're trying to finish 13th in the nation as they come through. 500 meters to go for Saratoga. You see, it's not quite a length of open water. It's only about a half a length of open water. But look at this race between for second place between Conestoga and City Island. It is stroke for stroke.
That's right. So at some point, it looked like City Island had almost pulled even with Conestoga, but then Conestoga answered that charge, and they're trying to hold off that really good push here by City Island coming into the final strokes. We also were looking at some great racing between Redwood Scullers and Newport. Last time we saw them, Newport had the advantage over Redwood Scullers, whereas just about 100 meters previous to that, it was Redwood Scullers. So back and forth go these boats as they progress down the race course. Right now, Saratoga still holding on to that lead, but they're watching City Island advance on that lead and push into their boat just a little bit closer.
Yeah, I think Saratoga spied that because City Island was really starting to move away from Conestoga, and then Saratoga took a little shift there. So we're 300 meters from the finish line here in the C final of the women's lightweight youth double, and it is still out in front. Is Saratoga, but are they going to be able to hang on? It's City Island really pushing hard, getting past Conestoga. Those are your top 3, and then still connected on the outside there. If I had to call it, I would say Newport slightly ahead of Redwood Scullers, but they do look like they're still fighting with each other out there in lanes 5 and 6.
That's right. Still quite a bit of water left here as we come into the final 250 meters. There's a lot of movement that can happen, so we'll keep an eye on Newport and Redwood Scullers as they bring it to the line. But right now, City Island is the one to watch. They've had a great last 500, and they're coming up to even challenge Saratoga. They've taken away a little bit of that lead, so we'll see what they have as they come into their final stroke. Saratoga still holding on to that top spot, but being pushed by City Island. Conestoga fading back to third, but then look at Newport. Look at Newport out in lane 5 as well. So they're coming up to challenge Redwood Scullers in the 5th place position.
Yeah, big time finish there from Newport. They may get past possibly Conestoga. It's going to be very close between those two, but it is going to be Saratoga. The Stripes are going to take this one. They're going to finish 13th in the nation in lane 1 ahead of City Island with that great last 600 or so meters of this race. And then it's going to be a photo. I'm not calling it. It is so close. It's maybe that was Newport just slightly over the boat from Conestoga, but you're going to have to check the results on that one. And then on the outside there, coming across the line, Redwood Scullers. So that was a women's lightweight youth double, the C final, places 13 through 17 in the nation for 2018. All right, on the race course is the men's lightweight double C final. In lane 1, we have ACRA. In lane 2, we have West Cambridge. Lane 3 is Casitas. Lane 4, Lake Oswego Community Rowing. Lane 5, First Coast. And in lane 6 is Detroit. Good shot there on the Jumbotron
stick with
of
it,
lanes
Brian.
1 through
Stick
3.
with it.
And you
Nice.
can see it might be a little bit of a lead there for Casitas in lane 3. Maybe about a deck over that boat in lane 2 from
Hold
West
that
Cambridge.
shot. Hold that shot.
West
Let 'em
Cambridge
row
actually
through,
won
let
the
'em row
bronze
through.
medal
You're
in this event last year, and the bowman's going to Dartmouth
There you
to
go.
row on the lightweight team. And then it's pretty close behind them between lanes 1 and 5, lane 1 ACRA and lane 5 First Coast.
All right, so it will be Casitas with their bow first across the line at 500 meters in. They are followed closely by West Cambridge rowing out of lane 2 next to them. And then just off of the stern deck of West Cambridge boat, pretty close between ACRA and Lake Oswego. So that rounds out your top 4 with a little bit of open water behind Lake Oswego in the 5th place position. It will be, I'm going to go actually correct that. That was First Coast that's in that 4th place position. Lake Oswego in 5th, and then Detroit holding up that 2nd place position. So all boats approaching 750 meters. Casitas holding on to that top position early on.
That's right, Casitas, you can see them because they wear really bright green or yellowish uni, and you can see their lead is not quite a full length. They can't really shake that boat in lane 2 from West Cambridge. And in fact, they're pretty close to level as you see the side by side here. It might be still a slight lead for Casitas, but it's very close between those two crews, and it might be another one of our match races all the way down the race course for these men's lightweight doubles here in the C final with those two boats out in front, and then a little bit of clear water back to the rest of the field.
All right, so great race shaping up between Casitas and West Cambridge right next to them. These top 2 boats now with a good amount of open water over the rest of the field. Right now I'm looking at great moves by First Coast and ACRA for that 3rd place position. Too close to call between them. And then Lake Oswego in 5th, Detroit in 6th. So it does look as if West Cambridge might have overtaken Casitas for that top position just by about a seat.
Yeah, I'll give it to them. West Cambridge, nice move there. Took a couple of seats and got ahead, but only slightly ahead of Casitas, and they're still connected as they come through the halfway point and into that third 500. That's a good shot of lane 1. That is ACRA. It's their first time rowing at Youth Nationals, those two athletes. And then here's a good shot of lane 5, First Coast. They finished 3rd at the Florida State Championships and at the Southeast Regional Championship. Coach's son in that boat. In lane 4 there, good shot of Lake Oswego. They are sitting, we believe, in 5th place. And then panning to the outside, Detroit in lane 6 in their blue is in 6th place. Both of those athletes are seniors, so this is their last race as youth athletes.
That's right. A lot of emotions, I'm sure, out there as they come into their final 500. Most of these guys are going to go on and continue to row in college, but for some of them, this might be their last race ever. And so there's a lot that's wrapped up into all the hard work that they put into the years of training to get to this point. Casitas doing a nice job there right down the center of the race course, as David had said. Easy to pick out with that bright lime green boat. I'm not sure that's the accurate color description, but that's what it looks like to me. So doing a nice job here as they are challenged by West Cambridge.
Yeah, that's right. Until we get an overhead shot, we won't know exactly, but West Cambridge did kind of pull away. So you saw the wake of West Cambridge when they showed that nice shot of Casitas there. So it is West Cambridge out in front of Casitas. That's a good shot of 3rd place ACRA right now, or challenging for 3rd place. I think it's very close between ACRA and First Coast. First Coast for a while there, I think, was actually in 3rd place. So it's probably still close, but they're all the way on the other side of the race course from one another, with ACRA in lane 1 and First Coast in lane 5. So that's lane 3, Casitas sitting in 2nd place. And wow, do we have to pan to get to West Cambridge. Man, they found some kind of speed in the middle of this race.
Yeah, I think that West Cambridge made a decision to put on a good show for us here, because they really just kind of took off in that third 500. They're almost at 500 meters to go, and they have developed quite a lead by several lengths of open water. So they were pretty close, being challenged by Lake Casitas, and then I think they just kind of made a decision. Let's go. Let's make this the best race that we can for the year, and here we go. So West Cambridge way out in front, Casitas in second, ACRA in that third place position, but with First Coast on the other side in lane 5, right next to them, First Coast Rowing out of Jacksonville, Florida. And then in 6, it will be Detroit. Lake Oswego in 5th, Detroit in 6th.
Great overhead shot of that West Cambridge boat way out in front. And this is exactly what you want to see if you're a coach, if you're a parent, if you're a sibling, is that they are leaving it all out here on the water without question, going after it and just moving and moving and moving away from this field. They're going to empty the tanks this afternoon in the C final of the men's lightweight youth double. It's a little bit longer race than any of these athletes are used to into this headwind, but they're all dealing with it very well. And they're just going to have to show what kind of stamina they've put into all of their training to get to this finish line and to try to beat as many boats as they can. But it's West Cambridge really rowing away with this thing 200 meters from the finish line in lane 2, ahead of what's getting much closer, really 3 boats very close in Casitas, ACRA, and First Coast.
That's right. I'm going to give the advantage, though, still in that second place spot to Casitas, but with First Coast right there next to them. So we'll see who's going to bring it in the final 250 meters. ACRA back a little ways in the 4th place position. So we'll watch as they come into their final strokes. We've seen a lot of turnaround in the final sprint phase. So we're watching that right now as West Cambridge spot, but it is close.
Yeah, and I just watched First Coast take it up, so they're going to find more speed doing that. I'm not sure. That Casitas boat is pretty formidable there, sitting in second place for much of this race after West Cambridge just turned on the afterburners and left everyone in their dust. But here we go. Casitas, it does have a bit more at the finish line, it looks like, than First Coast, and they are going to finish second is Casitas at a very high stroke rating there, really going after it. First Coast finishing in third place. And then in lane 1, it's ACRA coming across the line just ahead of lane 4, Lake Oswego, and lane 6, Detroit.
Good clean racing by those doubles, so well done. A little bit more stability for the boats as they are buffered by that headwind. And then here we go, right back up to the start.
Yeah, it's a women's youth double. This is a C final, as all of these races are this afternoon. I'll set the field for you. In lane 1, we have Redwood Scullers. Lane 2 is Vancouver Lake. Lane 3 is River City. Lane 4, Ridgewood. Lane 5, Holy Names. And in lane 6, South Jersey.
All right, had a clean start. Boats at 250 meters right here. So we probably won't see a whole lot of separation between boats until we get a little bit closer to 500. Race call for you.
Adrian coming to 500 meters.
Yep, we pretty much have 6 boats straight across at 500 meters, and I'm sure that it's going to shake out, but Redwood Scullers does have that lead just slightly over Vancouver Lake. I'm going to give it to you pretty much in lane order because I think that's exactly where they are right now. River City in 3rd, leading just slightly over Ridgewood, Ridgewood just slightly over Holy Names, and then Holy Names with a slim margin over South Jersey, but not a whole lot of separation. We've got a lot of overlap with these boats, and as we come towards 1,000 meters, we'll wait for someone to make a big move.
Yeah, that's right. At pretty much everybody's overlap. Maybe Redwood Scullers has broken the overlap on lane 6, South Jersey, but that's about it here. So you got 5 boats certainly connected. South Jersey still connected with at least 2 of the boats. South Jersey actually won this event last year, and these girls rode in the 4 all season. And then in the Holy Names boat in lane 5, you have 2 seniors. One's going to Boston College, the other one's going to University of San Diego. In lane 4, Ridgewood, they're the Philly City champions. Sitting there really basically neck and neck with lane 5's Holy Names. And then you look back up front, you've got Redwood Scullers still out in front, maybe a 3/4 length, almost a full length advantage over Vancouver Lake. Maybe has a foot there on River City. Vancouver Lake actually has a novice in this women's double.
Wow, so that bodes well for the future of their program. And right now you're looking at really great racing. Not a whole lot of separation between Vancouver Lake and River City. It's kind of whose blades are in the water at the right time. Is it River City? Is it Vancouver Lake? So right now those boats dead even. Redwood Scullers pulling clear of the rest of the field. So they've been in front and now they have a bit of open water as we get towards the halfway point. Same thing between Ridgewood and Holy Names, really close between those 2 boats. Kind of too hard to call between who has 4th or 5th. And then South Jersey just a little bit off the back in the 6th place spot.
Wow, look at that race in lanes 2 and 3. Back and forth. We say it sometimes, they're trading punches. Whoever's in the water is basically in the lead between Vancouver Lake and River City behind Redwood Scullers. So Redwood Scullers out in front. They've got some breathing room because they have some open water. But who is going to make a move to try to break this thing open between lanes 2 and 3, Vancouver Lake and River City? That's the question. But look, still connected with both of those boats is lane 5, Holy Names. Holy Names was a little bit further back, so they're starting to push in is Holy Names right now, maybe finding some speed in the middle 1,000 of this race that maybe they weren't quite as quick in that first 500, but they are right there still connected with those two boats. But look at this. They're dropping in almost exactly the same time. Two very, very evenly matched boats. One from Vancouver, the other from Vancouver Lake, excuse me, the other one from Sacramento.
That's right. So Holy Names took a big push there at the halfway point. They've drawn their boat up almost level with River City and Vancouver. River City attempting to stay just in front of Vancouver and maybe pull away from them, but that Vancouver Lake crew is really tenacious and just won't let them get away. So great racing here now between three boats, Vancouver Lake, River City, Holy Names for that second place position. Ridgewood dropping back to the 5th place spot, and South Jersey in 6th. But Redwood Scullers along the shoreline, they are your leader right now, just past 1,000 meters.
And look at this, it's still just dead level with Holy Names getting into the mix. We may have 3 boats across as they approach 500 to go. They're at about 1250 right now, about 750 meters left in this race, but it's Redwood Scullers with a full length of open water. And then look at those bows. They haven't been separated by more than probably 3 feet for the last 800 meters between these two boats. One of the best races we've seen of the whole day here in terms of just finding two boats adjacent to one another with such similar speeds in these two boats from Vancouver Lake and River City, with Holy Names still just ever so close to inching even with them.
That's right. So the Northwest Cruise, Vancouver Lake, and Holy Names, they've probably raced each other sometime throughout this season, so you know that they're going to be gunning for each other. But also as a source of pride, let's make the Northwest known for its strong sculling program. So doing a great job there out of Holy Names in lane 5 and Vancouver Lake in lane 2. But really, really close between those three crews still. So not a whole lot of movement. No one really jumping out and doing anything super crazy here right now. We'll wait for the 500 meter line and see what they have going, because as we've seen all afternoon, we have the sprints coming up that are going to really determine what's going to happen and who's going to take advantage of good technique, great catch placement, to see if that boat can move as efficiently as possible in the high stroke ratings. And right now, still too close to call between Vancouver Lake, River City, and Holy Names.
Yeah, I mean, maybe 5 feet separating the three crews. I think it's still Vancouver Lake, but not by much. And Holy Names just showed a tremendous middle 1,000 there to get back into the mix. But are those seniors from Holy Names going to have enough left in the tank here in the last 400 meters to try to push through those other two crews? We'll find out. Redwood Scullers still out in front, still a full length of open water back to that Vancouver Lake boat sitting in lane 2. And then it does look like a slight advantage here for River City over Holy Names. As we approach the finish line, they approach the red buoys to tell them it's 250 meters left in this C final of the women's youth double coming your way. So come down to the beach, cheer on these athletes. It's the last race of the year for many of them, unless they're going to row internationally or over the summer, and here they come.
All right, Redwood Scullers in lane 1 against the shoreline. Let's hear it for them. They have an open water lead coming into their final 250 meters. We're going to watch their sprint and see if they can stay with that same distance between themselves and the rest of the field, because Vancouver Lake is coming on strong. River City right there with them, and Holy Names on the outside. So great racing as we get towards the finish line. In the 5th place position, Ridgewood continues, followed by South Jersey in 6th. But here they come, Redwood Scullers, 20 strokes left for them.
Yeah, pushing into this headwind in these women's doubles. It's a stable boat, but it's heavier, and they're trying to push it to that finish line. It does look like Redwood Scullers will hang on, but look at this race going on. Holy Names really finding a good finish here. Those seniors laying it out. They are right there with Vancouver Lake. These two Northwest doubles are going to finish very close to one another. Big push there from Vancouver Lake in the last couple of strokes. Oh, wow. Amazing finish. And unfortunately, a little bobble there from River City finishing it up here. They're going to finish in 4th. ahead of these two connected boats in Ridgewood and South Jersey. So another awesome C final here. That was the women's double C final, and it was won pretty commandingly by Redwood Scullers in lane 1. All right, looking back at the Jumbotron, looking at our feed here from the start of the C final for the men's youth double. Let me set the field for you. In lane 1, closest to the beach is Baltimore. In lane 2 is Sarasota Scullers. Lane 3 is Episcopal School of Dallas. Lane 4 is Minnesota. Lane 5 is Port Rowing. And in lane 6 is Seattle Preparatory School. So here they come.
There you go, Brian. Nice
getting
shot.
Into that first 500, starting to settle out after their starts. And you can see a good overhead picture there. You see that white buoy. That's 500 meters into this race. It's the men's double C final. And I'm going to give the lead at the 500-meter mark to Sarasota Scullers in lane 2.
Yep, they have just a slight lead, maybe 1 seat right now over lane 3, Episcopal School of Dallas. Episcopal School sitting 2 seats over lane 1, Baltimore, and then just on the other side of them, just off of the stern deck of the Baltimore boat, will be lane 5, Port Rowing from New York. Port Rowing now with a little bit of open water or over places 5 and 6. That will be Minnesota and then Seattle Prep on the outside. So we'll keep our eyes on those boats because they're all still pretty close here at 750 meters in. Sarasota Scullers still with that slight lead, but I'm not sure. It looks like Episcopal School might be making a big push trying to draw even perhaps with Sarasota Scullers with Baltimore right there as well. So tight racing in these top 3 boats.
These gentlemen from Sarasota Scullers finished 7th at the head of the Charles, which is no easy feat with those huge fields of 50 or more boats in some of these events at the head of the Charles. And they're trying to have a good final race of the year here, half a length ahead of Episcopal School of Dallas. Episcopal School of Dallas about a deck ahead of Baltimore.
All right, all boats coming up, 750 meters gone for them. Sarasota Scullers making a big push to try and see if they can pull clear right now of those 2 boats, Baltimore and Episcopal School, that are duking it out and trying to solidify a 2nd or 3rd place position and maybe come up to challenge Sarasota Scullers. But I think that boat from Sarasota, they're pretty experienced. I think they're pretty savvy, and they are going to try to pull clear and maybe get a little bit of open water by that halfway point. Lane 5, Port, is in the 4th place position. They have about a length right now over both Minnesota and Seattle Prep. So tight racing between lanes 4 and 6 as well.
Yeah, it is. It's excuse me, been a close race between Minnesota and Seattle Prep all the way down the race course. They're not in the picture right now, but you can see Sarasota Scullers with a full length advantage over that boat from Episcopal School of Dallas that finished 2nd at the Central Championships, who is ahead of Baltimore. The Baltimore bowman is a senior. He's going to UCLA, a college. Sarasota Scullers. Good shot of your leader right there. Sarasota Scullers, a full length of open water ahead of our field here in the C final of the men's youth double. And they're doing it in style. These gentlemen that I watch race all the time at Nathan Benderson Park are having a really nice race, trying to finish 13th in the country in the men's double.
Yeah, one of the things that stands out for me watching the Sarasota Scullers is how relaxed they are. So again, it looked a little bit frantic within that first 500, but then they calmed down. They really found their rhythm, and it was really effective for this boat. So they now have a very clear open water lead over the rest of the field, but then still tightening up here between Baltimore, Episcopal School, and Port, headed in to this final 500 meters and final 400 meters actually at this point as they come into the spectator area. So Baltimore being challenged by Episcopal School, or the other way around. Episcopal had been in that 2nd place position, but they're seeing a big challenge by Baltimore and Port. And then also just coming back into the frame and coming back into contention, this is Minnesota.
Yeah, Minnesota really putting on a big push. They started at 500 to go, and they're starting to really close the gap here. So solid 2nd place right now is lane 1, Baltimore, and we'll see if they can hold on to 2nd place. But behind them, man, Port is pushing, Minnesota is pushing, and Episcopal School of Dallas, they're all pushing, and they're connected, all 3 of those boats, and they all have contact with Baltimore. So here we go, last 250 meters. This is going to be very close at the finish line, but it is Sarasota Scullers way out in front. So then it's for 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th place. It could be any permutation of these 4 boats that are all connected coming down the race course, Adrian. What a good finish here in the C final.
That's right, 250 meters to go, and it's tightening up as we get towards the finish line. Seattle Prep continues in 6th, just a little bit behind, not quite able to match the speed here in these final strokes, but what a great race for that 2nd, 3rd, or 4th place position for Episcopal School, Baltimore, Minnesota, Port. Right now, we'll see how it shakes out.
Here it is. Sarasota Scullers are going to finish 13th in the nation in the men's double, winning the C final here at the 2018 U.S. Rowing Youth National Championships, ahead of this very close race between Baltimore and Minnesota. Wow, that was close. I'm not even going to call that one. In 4th place is the boat from Episcopal School of Dallas. In 5th place is Port. And finishing in 6th place is Seattle Preparatory School. So those are your places 13 through 18 in the nation for 2018 in the men's youth double. Beautiful shot of our start platform here at Lake Natoma for the 2018 U.S. Rowing Youth National Championships. And you see all of these crews starting, and it doesn't look like we're going to have any issues coming through 100 meters, so we should have a good, clean race here. Looking at some of these crews, we have Atlanta Juniors in lane 4. They finished 2nd in the Southeast. We have 2 novice freshmen in the karate boat in lane 5, which is pretty amazing. In lane 6, Harriton High School is the Philly City champions. And the Lakeside boat in lane 1, they were 3rd in the Northwest. They have 1 senior, 1 junior, 2 sophomores, and 1 freshman. So a very diverse crew there in terms of ages for that Lakeside boat in lane 1.
So a good amount of experience, varied experience. Some of these athletes haven't rowed at the Youth National Championships before. Some of them brand new to the sport of rowing. And that's what's so great about this event is that you can be very successful very quickly, or you can work for a whole career just to get to this point. So right now, what we're looking at is a good challenge between Lakeside and Mountain Lakes as we come up to the first 500 meters. It looks as if Mountain Lakes might have a slight lead over Lakeside, maybe just by 1 seat.
Yeah, that's right. This is a C final of the women's lightweight youth 4, and it does look like Mountain Lakes in lane 2 with a lead, maybe about a half a length over Lakeside, but also out there, and we couldn't see them in the early shot, is that Philly City champ Harriton High School in lane 6. So they are right there in the mix. They may be very close to even with that Mountain Lakes boat that we called out in the lead. So the top 3 is some order of Mountain Lakes, Harriton, and the boat in lane 1 from Lakeside. Then in 4th place, it appears to be the boat in lane 4 from Atlanta Juniors. And then the boat in lane 3 from Manhasset High School in 5th, Parati in 6th at the moment.
That's right. So all crews just past 500 meters in. As we come down the race course approaching 750 meters, it'll shake out a little bit. There'll be a little bit more separation. But right now, it is that outside lane. We haven't seen this too much this morning, where Harrington High School, rowing out of lane 6, looks to have a pretty solid lead right now by 2 seats over Mountain Lakes. Mountain Lakes sitting 2 seats over Manhasset High School, and then falling back to that 4th place position, it will be Lakeside. Right behind them, by a little bit of open water, in lane 3, Manhasset High School in the 5th place position, but with Parati right next to them. So all boats now approaching the halfway point. Harrington High School doing a nice job pushing their bow in front, but being challenged by Mountain Lakes.
Yeah, those 2 boats really too close to call. They are stroke for stroke, but one's in lane 2, one's in lane 6. So good luck for these coxswains to figure out exactly where they stand in relation to one another. But they are really going at it in those lanes 2 and 6, Mountain Lakes and Harriton. And then also pushing up and having a nice race here in the second 500 is Atlanta Juniors. They are in lane 4. They're sitting in 3rd place for sure over the 4th place boat, which is in lane 1, Lakeside. So those are your top 4. And then it's deadlocked. It's basically dead even between the remaining 2 boats, Manhasset and Parati.
All right, all boats approaching 1,000 meters. This is the point in the course where they get a little bit of exposure, a little bit of wind. It actually seems like it's calmed down just a little bit as we come through the afternoon. Not too much heat to speak of. So it's really just perfect racing conditions for these guys out here on Lake Natoma. Harrington High School really taking advantage of where they're at and making sure that their coxswain stays savvy and looking all the way across at lane 2, because Mountain Lakes is really making a good push here towards the halfway point. Atlanta Juniors also making a good push at 1,000 meters to go. So those are your top 3 boats right now: Harrington, Mountain Lakes, and Atlanta Juniors. A little bit too close to call between Mountain Lakes and Atlanta Juniors for that 2nd or 3rd place spot.
Yeah, and you saw that white buoy. That's halfway, so they're only halfway through this race. And here they come. They're all the 3 of those boats that we were just talking about are connected. Here comes Atlanta Juniors putting on a push at the halfway point, it appears, because it's starting to get a little closer between Mountain Lakes and Atlanta Juniors. But they are trailing just slightly, probably by about 3 or 4 feet. Harrington right in front of us here in that pocock that's starting to move off of the camera to the right. That is your leader in lane 6. It would be, I think, the only lane 6 winner, if they could hang on, that we have seen at this U.S. Rowing Youth National Championship here this weekend. But look at that race. It is so close right now between Atlanta Juniors and the boat at the top, Mountain Lakes.
And these top 3 crews have open water over the rest of the field. It looks like Lakeside is still in that 4th place position, but being challenged by Manhasset High School as well as Parati. So kind of 2 races going on. You've got the top 3 up in front, and then behind them by open water, you've got Lakeside, Manhasset, and Parati all battling it out at 750 meters to go.
That's right, 750 meters to go. And you get this overhead shot of the crews, or the side-by-side again. Look how close it is, and these 2 crews have really tracked down Harrington. It appears. It does look like Mountain Lakes might actually have the lead now, and Atlanta Juniors may be either dead level or slightly ahead of Harrington. So Harrington was your leader to 1,000, but I think they've dropped to 3rd place. So we'll see what kind of response they have as these 2 crews kind of push a little bit past them. What's interesting is we have lanes 2, 4, and 6 here, so we have vacant lanes in between each of these 3 boats that are connected up front.
So coming into the final 500 meters, we're going to find out exactly what we've got here as it shakes out coming into the final strokes. Let's see whose sprint is going to be most effective. Harrington's had a great race, a great middle of this race. So let's see if they can wrap it up and have an effective sprint, maybe stay in front. But that Mountain Lakes boat is pretty fast, and they're turning it on right now, as well as Atlanta Juniors. And just behind them, by about 1.5 lengths of open water, continues with Lakeside, Manhattan High School, and Parati, all right next to each other.
Yeah, this is amazing. Look at this. It's a vacant lane in between each of these 2 races within this race. This is the C final of the Women's Lightweight Youth 4, and we found 3 boats that have very similar speeds that are out in front, and 3 boats that are trailing those 3 out in front that have very similar speeds. This is amazing. I actually haven't seen anything like this in a long time of announcing races where we have something like this going on. But it looks like Mountain Lakes, and they're getting challenged still by Harrington. Harrington is ahead of Atlanta Juniors at this point. So it's Mountain Lakes trying to hang on up there in lane 2. Harrington starting to really push it here as we approach the red buoys. Almost 250 meters left in this C final.
I think David's more confident than I am about calling who's in the lead, because it is so close between Harrington and Mountain Lakes for that top spot. So as they come into a better view, the geese better get out of the way, because these boats are barreling down at them right now. It is Mountain Lakes closest to the shoreline, looks to have a very slight lead over Harrington. Harrington taking the stroke rating up. Right behind them, Atlanta's Juniors, definitely in the 3rd place position. And then in 4th, it looks to be Manhasset High School. Looks like they've taken over that 4th place position from Lakeside. Lakeside in 5th, with Parati in 6th. So coming into view here, let's see who's got it. Is it going to be Harrington to hold on to the top spot, or Mountain Lakes?
Yeah, this one's going to come right down to the line, lanes 2 and 6. So many lanes in between them. Atlanta trying to wind it up and get back into the mix. They were there for a long time with these 2 boats. But it does look like it's going to be Mountain Lakes probably, but we'll see as they come into view. Wow, these crews really laying it out here. And look at all of this connection. What a beautiful finish in the C final of the Women's Lightweight 4. It is going to be Mountain Lakes holding off Harrington ahead of Atlanta Juniors. And then it's going to be Manhasset ahead of a photo finish. I'm not calling it. That is one of the closest finishes of the entire day between the boat from Lakeside and the boat from Parati.
Great racing here in the lightweight youth 4. Final C again, racing for places 13th through 18th in the nation. All right, and as we await the start in the men's lightweight youth 4, we'll give you the lineups here. In lane 1, Miami. Lane 2, North Bay. Lane 3, Seattle.
Hang on, Brian. Hang on to it. Hang on to it.
Cambridge Ridge and Latin. Lane 5, St. Louis B. And lane 6, Bainbridge Island. And all boats are now past 500 meters, just past the 500 meter mark. And it looks like our leader will come out of lane 5, that's St. Louis B. They had a pretty quick start here, but they're also being challenged by Miami. Miami looks pretty close to them. Just behind Miami is North Bay. So top 3 boats right there, St. Louis B, Miami, and North Bay. Pretty close, kind of hard to tell how much separation they have, but they have pulled themselves up to a full-length lead over the other 3 crews. So in 4th, it will be Seattle Rowing Club, sitting maybe 2 seats over Cambridge Ridge and Latin. And then in 6th, Bainbridge Island.
Wow, so much connection. This one's really close yet again. So you have 3 boats kind of about 3/4 of a length ahead of the other 3 boats. And each of these 2 sort of races within the race, probably the 3 potted boats are separated by about 3 feet. So it's not even worth calling. It is impossible to call between these 3 boats that are out in front, Miami, North Bay, and and St. Louis B. And then pushing into 4th, maybe trying to get in the mix with those top 3 now appears to be Seattle. They told us in this Seattle boat that they just like to race. And that's what they're doing here, sitting in 4th place, trying to push up with these leaders. But look at this beautiful camera shot. I mean, it's dead level up front. Lanes 1 and 2, Miami and North Bay, maybe just slightly ahead of St. Louis B. That's got a slight advantage then on Seattle. Cambridge Ridge and Latin also right in the mix and connected with all 4 of those boats. And then the only boat that's off the pace, although they still may have the tail of Cambridge Ridge and Latin, is Bainbridge Island in lane 6.
Yeah, so as they come to the halfway point, all boats, again, like David said, they're still connected. There's not a whole lot of, not a huge lead right now at 1,000 meters to go. But lane 5, St. Louis B, just slightly ahead. And now North Bay pushing themselves into the 2nd place position. North Bay, there's the triplets are not in this boat, but there's two of the 3 triplets rowing together. So you know that they've got a good connection. They probably trained together. And so really kind of a fun little fact coming out of the North Bay boat. And right now they're actually coming up to challenge that St. Louis B boat. Maybe they heard me and the brotherly love pushed them down the course. So North Bay putting themselves into the lead right now, just slightly over St. Louis B, but then also a good push here by Miami. Miami was a finalist in this event at the 2017 Youth National Championship. So a lot of speed coming out of all of these boats as we come into the 3rd 500.
That's right, North Bay out in front. The other thing that the North Bay, and I'm going to presume coach told us, because it sounded like the coach when I read it, was that the coxswain broke his leg and almost missed the season just 10 hours after the coach told him not to go skiing. So the coxswain, I don't really know why the coxswain needs a leg that's not broken. I'm a coxswain, and I'll tell you, laying down in those 4s, you don't necessarily need to have a leg that's not broken, but we'll forget about that for a minute because they're winning this race 3/4 of a length ahead of basically dead level Seattle and Miami, it looks like.
That's right. So whatever the coxswain's doing, it's working right now for that North Bay crew as they come into the final 500 meters, doing a nice job pulling themselves up to almost a full-length lead over the rest of the field. So North Bay in lane 2, they are your leader, and it's really, really close right now between Seattle, Cambridge Ridge and Latin, and St. Louis B. I think St. Louis B has the advantage in the 2nd place position, but just barely over Seattle. Cambridge Ridge and Latin behind them just by maybe a seat, and then out on the outside, Miami continues in the 5th place spot with Bainbridge Island in 6th. So as they come into view, we're pulling into the final 500 meters here. North Bay really putting on a show in that 3rd 500, testament to their fitness and to their confidence as they attempt to break free, get a little bit of open water coming in to the final strokes.
Yeah, I think Seattle might have the edge now on St. Louis B just slightly. but it's so close. It's probably 15 feet for 4 boats. I'm going to include Miami and Cambridge Ringe and Latin in that mix. They're all connected behind North Bay, all 4 of these boats. So what do they have in the last 300 meters? That's what we're going to find out. This is a C final, the men's lightweight youth 4, the last race of the year for most of these athletes, last race of a youth career for some of them. It is North Bay by 2 seats of open water ahead of that boat from Seattle. Seattle has pushed away a little bit. Here comes Miami. Miami getting back in the mix up there in lane 1. Does appear like Miami might have pulled now into 3rd place ahead of Cambridge Ringe and Latin and St. Louis B. What a race here in the men's lightweight youth 4.
Yeah, really a turnaround for Miami. They dropped off the pace a little bit there, but then they turned it back on for this last 500. So as they come up, they're up against the shoreline. Miami in that 2nd place or 3rd place position. Seattle still in 2nd, but North Bay with the lead. 20 strokes left for them in this sea level final. You can see those bright blue blades. They've lost a little bit of that open water lead right now, but they still have a solid push as they come into the final strokes here, and they'll take this win. Nice job to them, rowing from Petaluma, California, and then so close between 3rd, 4th, and 5th place. Miami, was it Seattle, St. Louis B, and then finally Bainbridge Island as they come across in 6th.
Yeah, Seattle finished 2nd, and then it was a photo between Miami and Cambridge Ringe and Latin for 3rd place. No idea who took that one. They were dead heated at the finish line, and I'm sitting right on it. So another amazing C final here. We're finding so many boats with the same speed in these C finals, and they have been awesome all the way down the race course. As you see, if you're watching the Jumbotron, we're on the course now with the C final of the women's youth 4. Let me set the field for you. In lane 1 is Greenwich. Lane 2 is San Diego. Lane 3 is OKC Riversport. Lane 4 is Cincinnati Juniors. Lane 5, Haddonfield, and in lane 6, Austin.
All right, all boats now past that first 250 meters. As they gear up, they're still in their high strokes, and they're going to settle down into their base pace here. We'll come back with a call at 500 meters.
All right, good shot there of lanes 1 through 3. Lane 1 is on the far right. That is Greenwich from Coscob, Connecticut. In the middle there is San Diego. They were 2nd at the head of the Charles. And then in lane 3 there in the bright orange boat is OKC Riversport. It looks like slightly ahead of them is lane 4, Cincinnati Juniors. They were the Midwest champions. And then Haddonfield actually won the Mid-Atlantic. And you're seeing them. Well, you're not quite seeing them yet. They're a little bit behind lanes 3 and 4, but lane 6 having a really nice start here, Austin. And I think in the notes they said that this is a 4 from Austin, Texas. We love Austin, and we're the pride of Texas.
Texas pride. That's right. So all boats now just shy of 500 meters in. Your leader will be Greenwich. We've seen how strong their program is this year with really good races in both the women's 8 and the women's lightweight 8. And we're seeing that here in the sea level final for the women's youth 4. So Greenwich, your leader, but they are being challenged right now by Austin in that outside lane as well as San Diego. So not a whole lot of separation between boats here. Still very early on. In the 4th place position, we're going to move over to the inside. That will be Cincinnati Juniors. They're sitting just ahead of OKC Riversport, and then OKC Riversport 1 length over Haddonfield.
So it's Austin and it's Greenwich, and they're basically dead even, but one's in lane 1, one's in lane 6. So pretty amazing race going on here. Can we get a winner out of lane 6? I'm rooting for Austin here to see if we can get that, but they are basically dead level all the way across the race course with Greenwich, and just behind them is that boat from San Diego. So close, probably within a couple of feet.
Right, so those are your top 3 boats, Greenwich, San Diego, and Austin. Hard to tell right now who is your leader between Greenwich and Austin, so we'll keep an eye on those 2 boats. San Diego right there in the mix as well. And then falling back to that 4th place spot is OKC Riversport, Cincinnati Juniors, and then Haddonfield. And actually, I'm going to reverse that a little bit. It looks like Cincinnati Juniors is in the 4th place position, OKC Riversport in 5th, and then Haddonfield in 6th. So really close here because Cincinnati Juniors putting on a big push just before 1,000 meters, almost level with the top 3 boats. So not a whole lot of separation. It looks like Greenwich and San Diego are your leaders now, but Austin right there. So just a couple of feet separating those 3 boats. Cincinnati Juniors coming up to challenge as well. OKC Riversport falling back just a bit to 5th place, and then Haddonfield in 6th. So those are your placements as we approach 1,000 meters in.
That's right. This is a racer's race because everybody's still in this thing. But it was a big push there from San Diego. I think has them sniffing the lead for the first time. A little bit ahead of Greenwich and a little bit ahead of Austin, but right in there in the mix also is the Cincinnati Juniors. You're seeing all 4 of those boats that I just mentioned in the picture right now. You can see San Diego with a slight lead there, maybe a deck in that red boat. I think it's called the Susan Francia. I watch it go past me in front of me here. It had the Olympic rings on the front of that bow, and they do have the lead, does San Diego, slightly ahead of that boat from Greenwich. And then Greenwich trying to hold off this charge that's happening, it looks like, from Cincinnati Juniors.
That's right. So Cincinnati really put a big push on at the halfway point. I believe that they have overtaken Austin for that 3rd place position. So Austin had been in the lead. They've slipped back just a little bit. But as we progress down the race course, there's a lot of change that might happen. And San Diego has put themselves into the lead position over Greenwich. So what we're looking at right now in terms of placement, San Diego is your leader, just by 2 seats, 2 maybe 3 seats over Greenwich. Greenwich holding off a big push here by Cincinnati as they come into that 3rd place position, just slightly over Austin. So all boats still pretty close and within striking distance of each other. OKC Riversport back in 5th, Haddonfield in 6th. Boats have 750 meters to go. Coming into the final 500, we'll see how it shakes out between Greenwich, Cincinnati Juniors, and Austin.
Yeah, San Diego just had too much for the rest of the field in the middle 1,000, it looks like. But there's still a lot of race left. It is a 4s race. We could see something heroic from one of these other boats to try to track down San Diego. But in their red and white, they are out in front in lane 2. So you see all the bows charging towards us. It's San Diego sort of on the right side of the screen there. And just to the left of San Diego in the orange is OKC Riversport in lane 3. And then on the left, you see the green, blue, and white of Cincinnati Juniors. And then behind Cincinnati Juniors is Haddonfield in the red. So those are the crews and what they look like as they come towards you. But here we go, overhead shot. We can see exactly what's happening now. It's San Diego out in front. A little bit of open water, maybe a couple of seats over Cincinnati Juniors. So Cincinnati Juniors also a very strong middle 1,000 to put themselves in a good position here to finish top 2 with 500 meters to go.
And it looks like San Diego is asking for a little bit of open water. I think they have it just by a couple of feet over Cincinnati Juniors. So Cincinnati in the 2nd place position by maybe 1 seat over Austin, maybe a little bit more, but also with Greenwich right there. So as they come into view, we'll see how the race is going to tighten up. I think Austin is falling just a little bit off the pace as both Greenwich and Cincinnati Juniors move ahead of them. OKC Riversport also doing a nice job there in 5th place. They're still within contact to the top crews, but then a little bit off the pace, Haddonfield continues in 6th. So there goes San Diego, open water for them by about a half a length. And it looks like maybe Greenwich in the 2nd place position. Coming into the final 250 meters, though, San Diego with the lead.
Yeah, San Diego, almost a full length of open water now. And they're taking it away. You see that bucket rig. So on the port side here, closest to the beach, is the stroke woman and the bow woman of that San Diego boat. And they do have a length clear of open water ahead of Greenwich. It's Cincinnati Juniors out there in lane 4. It is OKC in the orange boat in lane 3 in the mix. And it's the boat all the way on the outside, Austin. Those Texas women up there doing a good job trying to pour it on here in the last 15 strokes. But it is going to be San Diego winning the C final of the Women's Youth 4 here at Lake Natoma at the 2018 U.S. Rowing Youth National Championships ahead of lane 1 Greenwich, going to come across the line in 14th place in the nation, just ahead of Cincinnati Juniors, OKC, Riversport, Austin. And finishing in 6th here is going to be Haddonfield, finishing up in the red jerseys and finishing 18th in the nation in the Women's Youth 4. So on the race course is the C final of the Men's Youth 4. Let me set the field for you as they come through their high strokes and start to settle into their race pace. In lane 1 is St. Andrew. Lane 2 is CRI's B entry. Lane 3 is Mount Baker. Lane 4, Nichols. Lane 5, Albany. And in lane 6 is the CRI A entry. So we have 2 boats in the red, black, and white of Community Rowing of Boston in this race, this C final. 1 is in lane 2, 1 is in lane 6. Really good shot there, you see, of lanes 1 through 3. So lane 1 at the top in the yellow is St. Andrew. And it does look like we have a lead right now, maybe just slightly or very, very close between Mount Baker and Nichols out in front of this field. But we'll see as we get an overhead shot what it exactly looks like. But you're getting a good shot right there of teammates, the 2 CRI boats in the red. Good shot there of Albany in the orange. And here they come. Look how those 4 boats are connected ahead of the field in lanes 1 through 4. And it is a race between lanes 3 and 4, Mount Baker and Nichols. Nichols from Buffalo, New York. They finished with a bronze medal at the Scholastic National Championships this year. And they're about a half a length ahead of Mount Baker, sort of pulling away a little bit from Mount Baker. Mount Baker sitting in 2nd place. 3rd place looks like St. Andrews, slightly ahead of CRIB.
Yeah, hard to tell right now between St. Andrews and CRI, especially from this angle. I think you're right, though. I'm going to give that advantage for 3rd place to St. Andrews Private School out in Georgia. So great job for them for qualifying for this very difficult event, Youth National Championships. Here they are in lane 1 right now in that 3rd place position, but super close next to them, the CRI B boat, CRI A boat. Hard to tell right now who's in 3rd. It looks like 3 bow balls almost straight across, but what's clear is that Nichols does have that lead. It's about a stern advantage for them over Mount Baker.
Yeah, yet again we have a pod of 3 boats separated by maybe 10 feet, and this time it's for 3rd place behind your leader Nichols, ahead of Mount Baker. And then it's too close to call. You got 2 CRI boats in there. I think the CRI A boat, or at least on paper the A boat in lane 6, is trailing just slightly those 2 boats up in lanes 1 and 2, CRI B and St. Andrew. But those 2 boats are so close to one another in lanes 1 and 2, and they're starting to, it appears to me, track down Mount Baker just a little bit as Nichols starts to go the other way and pull away from Mount Baker. So it's getting pretty close again with these 4 boats in lanes 1 through 4.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the CRI B boat might have the best of their teammates over there in lane 6. But again, we'll see how it shakes out as we come into this 3rd 500. Albany continues in 6th and just a little bit off the pace. But here we are, all crews at 1,000 meters to go. Nichols continues to hold on to that lead. Little bit of almost looking for a little bit of open water. They're trying to push themselves away, separate them out, and have a really good last half of this race and let the other boats just kind of duke it out for that 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th place position.
That's right. So a little bit of open water now for Nichols over Mount Baker, and it's getting closer with St. Andrews pushing up, CRIB pushing up. That's what you're seeing in the picture here on the Jumbotron. The white shell is Mount Baker. Panning to the left, you see CRI's A entry in lane 6, about a length ahead of the orange from Albany. All those rowers in the Albany boat are just juniors, so we will probably potentially see them again here at this event next year. But they're getting good experience in this C final, sitting in 6th place there behind CRI. But you see 3 seats of open water right now for Nichols. And look at this race shaping up. It's getting so much closer. Lanes 1 through 3 separated by about 4 feet.
Mount Baker still holding on to the 2nd place position, but they're being pushed right now really by St. Andrews and CRIB. Hard to see where that A boat for CRI is, but right now it's tightening up. There's only maybe a foot separating these boats. St. Andrews really on the move here in this last 750 meters. So it does look like St. Andrews has pushed themselves into the second place position, now just barely over CRIB. Mount Baker maybe actually slipping back to fourth.
Wow, what a race. Look at those two Hudson bows. It's just back and forth. Whoever's in the waters is ahead on the picture. It's St. Andrew, maybe 2 feet over CRI. CRI with about a deck over Mount Baker. What an awesome race for second, third, and fourth in the C final of the Men's Youth 4. We have 500 meters left. Your leader continues to be Nichols, and they are clear of those 3 boats. And moving away, it's almost a full length now for Nichols of open water ahead of these 3 boats, and I cannot wait to see how this finishes with CRIA on the outside trying to get in the mix, but they may run out of water doing so. But those 3 boats in lanes 1 through 3, St. Andrew in lane 1, CRIB lane 2, Mount Baker lane 3, separated by about 10 feet. Awesome, awesome race here. C final, the Men's Youth 4.
And that's right. That is the race to watch. And St. Andrews pushing so hard. They're trying to actually see if they can come up and match the speed that Nichols has. So we'll find out how it goes in this final 300 meters, just shy of the red buoys. Final 250 meters for Nichols. They had that open water lead, but they've watched it shrink as we get closer to the finish line as St. Andrews is on the move.
Yeah, it really is shrinking. St. Andrew, you're right, is starting to push, and they're getting pushed by CRI, and it's basically dead level now between St. Andrew and Nichols. So Nichols had it all the way down the race course. They were in such a good position, and we'll see if they can hang on now in the green. Nichols from Buffalo, New York, as I said, they are out in front, but are they going to be able to hang on and hold off St. Andrew in lane 1 in the gold, white, and black? St. Andrew ahead of CRI, CRI ahead of Mount Baker, and then CRI on the outside ahead of Albany. But it does look like Nichols found some speed there as we come through a little school of birds, but it's going to be Nichols hanging on, I think, Adrian.
I think they will, all the way to the line, just barely. It's going to be pretty close between these 2 boats. You heard the buzzer shot there. Open water back to them. It will be CRIB holding on to the 3rd place position over Mount Baker in 4th, CRIA in 5th, and then Albany in 6th. Great racing here in the Men's Youth 4. Okay, and we've just saw the flag go down for the Women's Youth Quad, final C here. We've got 6 boats on the water. In lane 1, Row America Rye. Lane 2, Conestoga. Lane 3, Nereid. Lane 4, Gainesville Area Rowing. Lane 5, Sarasota Scullers. And lane 6, Greater Dayton. So all boats have moved past the breakage area and are approaching 250 meters in. We'll be back with a race call a little bit closer towards 500 meters. And quick announcement here while we have your attention. We do have a lost phone and credit cards with the ID. The name on the ID is Antonia Ginsberg from Sarasota, Florida. So Antonia Ginsberg, if you're around, please come to the finish line tent to claim your property. All right, and then back to the racing. All crews now approaching the 500-meter mark. We're looking at 2 leaders out of lanes 1 and 2. That's Row America Rye and Conestoga. I'm going to give the slight advantage here by 1 seat to Conestoga early on in this race. Back in the 3rd place position, it will be Nereid rowing out of lane 3, and then we'll wait to get a little better shot of the rest of the field to call that placement.
Oh, wow, look at that
So
field.
super close right now between Gainesville area and Sarasota Scullers and Greater Dayton for that 4th, 5th, and 6th place position. So because it's so early on, there's not a whole lot of separation. We're just shy of 500 meters, but Conestoga doing a nice job moving themselves out already to a 1-length advantage over the remaining 5 boats.
That's right, Conestoga coming through 500 meters, and they have won the first 500 meters as Conestoga, the C final of the women's youth quad. They also won the Mid-Atlantic region and the Philly City Championships, did Conestoga in that yellow Empacher boat in lane 2. They have a full length now on the rest of the field, and I can't even call the rest of the field. Every single one of those quads is basically dead level behind them. Beautiful picture we have here from this drone. In lane 4, you have Gainesville area rowing. We're told that there are 2 juniors and 2 seniors in that boat. The seniors are going to go to UMass and Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. And then in lane 5, you have the second place boat from the southeast, Sarasota Scullers. But look how close it is, Adrian. I mean, it's basically 10 feet for 5 boats behind Conestoga.
That's right. I think we can give a little better placement now as they come up to the halfway point. Conestoga pulling themselves up now with open water over the remaining 5 boats. In second place, it will be Row America Rye. They look to have a 4-seat advantage right now over lane 4, Gainesville area rowing, and Gainesville area with maybe 1 seat over Nereid. And then super close, almost too close to call right now, between Greater Dayton and Sarasota. So those 4 boats, Sarasota, Greater Dayton, Gainesville, Nereid, very, very close to each other and just at the halfway point. We'll see a little bit of bumpy water here as they come through this more exposed section, but definitely Conestoga doing a nice job taking advantage of a great start and pushing themselves out to an open water lead.
That's right, Conestoga from Philly, or the Philly area. They want to win this thing, and they have a nice driver's seat for the rest of this race ahead of the rest of their competitors. Sitting in second place continues to be Row America Rye up there in lane 1. In third place is a boat from Gainesville area rowing in lane 4. And then look how close it is. It is almost impossible to call between the remaining 3 boats. You've got Nereid in lane 3, Sarasota Scullers in lane 5, Greater Dayton right in front of us here camera-wise in lane 6. So it's basically a length separating 5 boats still behind Conestoga, where if you get a couple of seats, even if you're in 6th place, you're probably going to be connected to 2nd place.
And at the halfway point, that's right. So Row America Rye really has done a nice job. They are in that 2nd place position, but they're seeing great challenges here by Gainesville area. Sarasota Scullers now back into the picture, as well as Greater Dayton. The only boat that's just a little bit off the pace there will be Nereid rowing out of lane 3, but even then, they're still within contact, so their bow's still on the inside of some of these boats. So not a huge amount of separation except for that Conestoga boat. So they are taking advantage of where they're at and taking every stroke to their advantage to see if they can pull a little bit farther away from the rest of the field.
Yeah, 2 of these girls in the Sarasota Scullers quad also rowing the pair, so that's pretty grueling regatta for them. Out in front continues to be Conestoga, looking really nice doing it. Blades down to the water into this headwind. It's a little slower than maybe they're used to, but only because the water's getting pushed at them a little bit, and they're nice and controlled. Good shot there of that yellow boat out in front. 37 strokes a minute, so they are going after it. They're going to leave it out here on the water here in the C final of the women's quad. Sitting in 2nd place, but just hanging on, barely getting challenged by 3rd place Gainesville, is that boat in lane 1 from Row America Rye. So they continue to have probably about 3 or 4 seats over Gainesville, but Gainesville is connected there. That's what you're seeing in your picture. Gainesville in that black boat closer to the camera. Row America Rye on the far side in lane 1. Then it's lane 5, Sarasota Scullers, with just a slight connection on Gainesville sitting in 4th place. And then in the orange, that's Nereid in lane 3. And then in lane 6, panning to the left, you'll see Greater Dayton in that white boat right there. Beautiful picture of that Greater Dayton quad coming down the race course here in the C final, the women's quad at the 2018 U.S. Rowing Youth National Championships. They are approaching. Your leader is past 500 to go. That's Conestoga. You saw that white buoy, and they have about 450 meters left to win the C final. Does Conestoga, sitting there about 3/4 of a length of open water ahead, but they're starting to get tracked down a little bit. At one point, it was a full length of open water. So what kind of finishes are we going to see from these crews? Row America Rye in lane 1 is starting to push. They're trying to close the gap on Conestoga. Going with Row America Rye is Gainesville. Those 2 boats still close, but Row America Rye definitely in 2nd place. Gainesville in 3rd place. And then it's very close, but it does look like Sarasota Scullers still sitting in 4th place, ahead of Nereid in 5th, and in 6th place, Greater Dayton. So here they come. continues to be Conestoga, those Philly City champions. And they may be a little frustrated to be in the C final, but they are not showing their frustration on anything other than the water right now, pushing their way to what looks like is going to be a win in the C final. We'll see if there's open water. Big push from Gainesville getting back in there. Royal America Rise still sitting in second place, but getting really pressed by Gainesville.
All right, coming down to the wire here in the final 250 meters, Conestoga with a storied history in this regatta. Back when I was coaching a million years ago, I remember them as one of our main competitors as well. So always super tough in the women's quad, and they're showing it right here, this high level of expertise coming into the final 20 strokes. Conestoga holding on to that lead. They had enjoyed an open water lead, but they've watched it shrink a little bit as Row America Rye pushes into their lead, as Gainesville also pushes each other down the race course, going for that top spot in the C-level final. But Conestoga is going to hold on to it. They're holding off that Row America Rye charge here. Gainesville, they're going to cross the finish line in the third place position, and then very close between Nereid, Sarasota Scullers, and then just a little bit off the back, Greater Dayton in sixth.
Yeah, this is going to be a photo here between Nereid and Sarasota Scullers. It's going to be Scullers by about 2 feet over Nereid for fourth and fifth place here in the C final, the women's quad. Coming across the line in sixth place, Greater Dayton, finishing 18th in the nation in the women's quad. So that was the C final of the women's quad. Our next event that's already on the race course is the men's quad. Why don't you set it up, Adrian?
All right, in lane 1, St. Mark's School. Lane 2, Gainesville Area Rowing. In lane 3, Berkeley High School. Lane 4, Nereid. Lane 5, Three Rivers Rowing. And lane 6, Conestoga. So again, we're seeing Gainesville and Conestoga here. We just saw them with their women's team in the C-level final. So both of those boats as well gaining entry into this C-level final. So here we go. Good overhead shot as we come just up towards the 500-meter mark, and it looks as if our leader is going to come out of lane 5. That will be Three Rivers Rowing. They have a slight lead right now over lane 6, Conestoga, and then we'll pan out and get a little bit better picture of where the rest of the teams are relative to each other.
Another really good close race, it appears, in this men's youth quad, at least early on. This is the C final. Again, places 13 through 18 in the nation. And it is a lead still for lane 5 at 500 meters. That is Three Rivers from Pittsburgh.
That's right. So one of the things that we're seeing this afternoon is some really good racing coming out of lanes 5 and 6, those outside lanes. And right now, Three Rivers doing a nice job holding on to a 2-seat lead. That lead will be over Conestoga. So Conestoga rowing out of lane 6 has about a stern advantage over Nereid. Nereid sitting maybe 1 seat over Gainesville Area Rowing. And then in the 5th place spot, it will be Berkeley High School rowing out of lane 3 with St. Mark's in the 6th place position. So as we get closer to that halfway point, we'll see if there's a little bit more separation between crews, but Three Rivers still holding on to that lead, but just slightly over Conestoga.
Yeah, Conestoga making it a little closer. So obviously we just saw the Conestoga women's quad finish first in the C final. You better believe that the men are competitive and they want to do the same thing here. So they're going to try to close the gap on Three Rivers in this second 500. We'll see if they're successful in doing that by the time we get to that buoy at halfway. But it's still Three Rivers out in front, about a deck ahead of Conestoga. Also starting to move is lane 4, Nereid. Nereid is probably pushed, it appears, into the 3rd place position. And then it's too close to call. It's basically dead level between Gainesville, may have a foot on that boat from Berkeley High School that is then ahead of St. Mark's. But St. Mark's is even connected with 3 or 4 other boats here. So this is still a very close race with your leader only about a deck in the lead.
Yeah, this is actually one of the closest races of the afternoon in the C-level final arena. So as we come into the halfway point, again, no one has really pushed themselves out to a huge lead. No one really has any separation from each other. So Three Rivers still with that slight lead over Conestoga, and Nereid coming into 1,000 meters to go. So we'll keep an eye on them, find out what shakes out in this third 500. That's where the reality settles in. That's where the legs start to burn, and that's where your training really comes into play. So Three Rivers holding on to that top spot over Conestoga, but Nereid really on the move out of lane 4.
Absolutely amazing. You have almost all 6 boats still connected, and it might be a lead now for Nereid. Looks like they've pushed their bow ahead for the first time in the orange there in lane 4, and they're sitting with about a deck. So that was a big old move at halfway from Nereid that got them a little bit of a lead, and also trying to go with them. And I think in second place now is Berkeley High School in lane 3. Going a little bit past Three Rivers there, but it's very close between those boats. Those are your top 3, but then look how close it is behind them. Gainesville right there, maybe a couple of feet for Gainesville over Conestoga, but Conestoga right there within striking distance. St. Mark's still connected with at least 4 boats here in this field.
Yeah, David, you're right. What a turnaround within these crews with so much overlap. Really anything can happen. At that halfway point, 2 crews, Nereid and Berkeley High School, really made a decision, and they were patient. They waited and they struck at the right time, and now it is a dogfight between those 2 teams up in front, Nereid and Berkeley High School. So cool to see it change up so much throughout the distance of this race course. We have these 2 leaders coming from the outside lanes. Now it's totally switched up. You've got Nereid and Berkeley High School, but then they're also being pushed by Gainesville area rowing, and then even St. Mark's coming back into the mix.
That's right. St. Mark's finding their speed in the third 500, and they are right back in this thing. It looks like Gainesville hanging on to third, maybe by a foot or 2 over the boat in lane 5 from Three Rivers, but St. Mark's starting to push. But it does look like taking back the lead, or taking the lead for the first time, is the Gold Blades of Berkeley High School, just slightly ahead of Nereid there in lanes 3 and 4. So this one's actually looking like we see on a race course where lane 1 is not the top seeded crew, where we normally have lanes 3 and 4 as the 2 top seeds. That's what we're seeing here really for the first time, Adrian, with these 2 boats separated by a couple of feet. Berkeley High School just ahead of Nereid.
What a great race here for Berkeley High School. Again, they have focused on the quad, I know, for the many past years, and they've done a really nice job here at the Youth National Championships at this event. And right now they're doing a great job, having turned around from being one in 5th or 6th place at the top of this race. Now they're in the lead by 3 seats over Nereid. Coming into the final 400 meters, Berkeley High School coming in with that top positioning. Every stroke they take, they're inching that boat a little bit closer to that finish line, a little bit farther away from Nereid. These 2 boats now open water over the rest of the field. In the 3rd place position, I'm going to call Gainesville. Gainesville now taking a couple of seats over both St. Mark's and Three Rivers. Conestoga back in the 6th place position. So really quite a turnaround from the beginning of this race.
Yeah, Berkeley High School with just a very, very heavy second 1,000, and they have just moved it into the lead, and they just continue to move away. They may have open water by the end of this thing, and the rating's really not all that high, so there's just a ton of power in that Berkeley High School boat. They must have heard me because they just kicked it up a beat there, but they're about a length ahead of the orange jerseys from Nereid. Nereid with a little bit of open water or right stern to bow with Gainesville area rowing sitting in 3rd place. Gainesville with a nice push here at the end, but it's going to be Berkeley High School winning the C final ahead of Nereid, Gainesville area rowing, and then sneaking up on the inside, St. Mark's just ahead of that boat from Three Rivers, ahead of Conestoga. Wow. All those horns going off very quickly, probably 5-6 seconds separating all of those boats at the finish line. What an amazing C final, the men's youth quad here at the 2018 U.S. Rowing Youth National Championships.
Great race for Berkeley High School. Come from behind victory in that C-level final. And we'll turn it back over to the start because the racing never stops here. We've only got 4 more races for this afternoon, and then we'll be back tomorrow with our grand finals and petite finals. Coming up, it will be the women's lightweight 8. They are sitting at the ready, don't have a start yet, so they're just making their final adjustments and awaiting the flag. In lane 1, Chicago. Lane 2, Sarasota. Lane 3, Holy Names. Lane 4, Miami. Lane 5, Saugatuck. And lane 6, Sarasota Scullers. This is going to be a great race. As I remember from the heats and from our semifinals, there's really just a lot of speed coming out of all these lightweight 8 boats. And although this is a C-level final, this is going to be a barn burner.
That's right. Here they come. And you got 3 boats from the southeast. You have Sarasota Crews, Sarasota Scullers, Miami, all in this race with Chicago in lane 1, Holy Names Academy in lane 3, and Saugatuck from Connecticut in lane 5. So here they come. This is a C final of the women's lightweight youth 8. Last race of the year for many of these athletes is this C final, trying to finish 13th in the nation in the women's lightweight 8. And look how beautiful that start is. Look how close all of these crews are already. Maybe an early lead there for Sarasota crew, but it's not by much. Look how close they all are packed together as they come through their high strokes and start to find a rhythm that they may want to hold. Another good start also from Sarasota Scullers in lane 6 in that boat that's rigged like a 4. If you look at it, it's pair, 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 pair all the way down that thing. I think it's called the Battleship. And it was an interesting rig that we saw looking kind of like a 4, but it's an 8, and they're out there with Sarasota crew.
Now that's cool. I don't think I've actually ever seen that. So that is really something to see. Lane 6 with that unique rig, and it's definitely working for them as they've had a really good start. But Sarasota in lane 2, so we've got Sarasota and Sarasota Scullers. Sarasota in lane 2 is your leader over Chicago and Holy Name. So those are your top 3 boats right now early on, but with Sarasota Scullers also right out there. This is pretty early in the race, so we'll see if there is a little bit more separation as the boats progress down the race course. And David, you were right. That Sarasota Scullers boat is called the Battleship. You've got to love it.
Yeah, I don't think that's a Battleship rig. I think that'd be 242, but they're battling in lane 6, and they're sitting in maybe 4th place now. Sarasota crew out in front in lane 2, about a half a length ahead of basically dead level Chicago and Holy Names that are slightly ahead, maybe a deck ahead of Sarasota Scullers. 5th place is a boat in lane 4 from Miami. And in 6th place right now, but connected with both Miami and Sarasota Scullers, is Saugatuck in lane 5.
All right, and as we get a little bit past 500 meters, Sarasota continuing to extend their lead. They now have almost a bow stern advantage over Chicago and Holy Names. Holy Names sitting maybe 2 seats over Sarasota Scullers out in lane 6. So Coxon looking across at lanes 1, 2, and 3 and urging her crew on to stay within contact, and definitely try and stay within contact to that Holy Names boat because that is their closest competitor right now.
So Sarasota crew 3/4 of a length there in lane 2 ahead of, I'm going to give it to Chicago just slightly now ahead of Holy Names Academy. And Sarasota Scullers still in the mix down there in lane 6. Connection with both 2nd and 3rd place boats. So certainly within striking distance at this point in the race. We're still just in the second 500 of this C final, the women's lightweight youth 8 here at the 2018 U.S. Rowing Youth National Championships. Is Sarasota crew going to be able to hang on and go start to finish? Are they going to start to get pressed by the crews on either side of them? Both Chicago in lane 1, Holy Names in lane 3. Are they going to get pushed by that boat in the picture right there, the Sarasota Scullers 8 in lane 6? We'll find out as this thing shapes up and they come through the halfway point.
And that's what we've watched this afternoon is really big moves being made right at the halfway point in that third 500. That's where you take advantage of your fitness. That's where you take advantage of those sharp catches and pushing into this little bit of a headwind. All boats doing a really nice job, but no one really making a huge move. So Sarasota still holding on to the lead, but they really haven't gone anywhere farther away from Chicago or Holy Names or Sarasota Scullers. So we'll wait to see what's going to happen in this third 500. Who's going to make that big move to really make a statement here in the sea-level final? Miami continuing in 5th, followed by Saugatuck.
Yeah, and I think starting to move is lane 3, Holy Names. I think as they come through halfway right there, they decided that maybe they want to take over 2nd place. But if they have it, it's only by about a foot. I mean, it's still so close between Chicago and Holy Names. I think that they just brought it level, did Holy Names, because Chicago did have a little bit of an advantage. But you see the bow balls of those two boats right in between the stroke woman and the 7 woman in the Sarasota Crew 8. So that's the advantage for Sarasota Crew, as you see the coxswain looking over to her left and her right, trying to figure out where those boats are and trying to say, look, we want clear water. I want a full length ahead of these boats. And then a good shot there of Sarasota Scullers in lane 6 sitting in 4th place. Then it's Miami MRC with that Florida state flag on their backs there. Special unis for this regatta sitting in 5th place in lane 4, panning out to 6th place Saugatuck in lane 5.
So I think what we're really looking at is a lot of very evenly matched boats coming into this final 500 meters. So now what we're going to see is what separates them as they take the stroke rating up and move into their final high rating sequence coming into the sprint phase. So right now Sarasota still in your lead, but still just by about 7 seats over both Chicago and Holy Names. Holy Names took a big jump there. They pulled themselves up just a couple of seats over Chicago, and it looks as if Holy Names might also be coming up to challenge and take away a little bit of that lead from Sarasota. Sarasota still in the lead though, but Holy Names on the move. Chicago right there out of lane 1, but then Sarasota Scullers out in lane 6. They're still in the mix.
They are. They're trying to make it a little closer as Sarasota Scullers trying to get a little bit closer before we get into the last 500 meters. It's Chicago now taking over second place again. They had it for a while in the light blue jerseys. They are in lane 1. They'll be closest to the beach coming down, and they only have a couple of feet on Holy Names. And Sarasota Crew just sitting on this lead. It's got to be fairly uncomfortable, quite frankly, for that coxswain, probably asking for it to be broken open. It's just not happening. 500 meters to go. It's half a length for Sarasota Crew, and it's dead level between Chicago and Holy Names behind them. And don't forget about Sarasota Scullers on the outside.
So this is really defensive rowing right now from Sarasota as they attempt to hold off a hard charge by both Chicago and Holy Names in these final strokes. So coming into the spectator area, keep your eye on lane 1, 3, and 6 as it's going to come down to the wire for them in these final strokes. Very slight advantage, I'd say right now, maybe going to Holy Names, but maybe just by a foot. Hard to tell. It's kind of going back and forth between Chicago and Holy Names for that second or third place position, but Sarasota doing a really nice job holding both of those boats off. Sarasota Scullers still out there in lane 6. They're still in the picture.
That's right, Sarasota Crew. There are a bunch of freshmen in that boat, I know, and they're trying to stay out in front. They're getting good experience, if anything else, and they are staying out in front. It's a half a length still, and they're just sitting on that half a length. I said it might be uncomfortable, but they're still winning, is Sarasota Crew in the pink hats, and it's still basically dead level. Maybe a slight advantage now, maybe a deck for Chicago in lane 1 for second place. Starting to move away a little bit is Chicago from Holy Names. Those are your top 3 as we get into the last 200 meters of this women's lightweight Youth 8. This is a C final on the outside in 4th place. It continues to be Sarasota Scullers, 5th place, Miami, 6th place, Saugatuck. But is Sarasota Crew going to hang on? They're getting really pushed here by Chicago and Holy Names.
And that is just a beautiful shot as they come down the race course. Sarasota doing what they can to hold off Chicago and Holy Names all the way down to the wire. Holy Names really taking it off, and every single stroke inching a little bit closer to Sarasota. Keep your eye on those blades as they move into the water. It's going to be Sarasota holding on to that lead just slightly over Holy Names, and then here is Chicago for 3rd. Sarasota Scullers out in lane 6 will take that 4th place position over Miami. And then in 6th, Saugatuck rowing out of lane 5.
Yeah, it was a deck win for Sarasota Crew over a hard-charging Holy Names. Really an awesome race in the women's lightweight Youth 8 C final as Saugatuck comes across the line, 18th in the nation in the women's lightweight Youth 8. We have 3 races left, and on the race course is the women's Youth 8C final. Let me set the field for you. In lane 1, we have Sarasota Crew. Lane 2, Nashville. Lane 3, Rose City. Lane 4, Moorestown. Lane 5, CRI. And in lane 6, Dallas United. You get a good shot there of the pink hats from Sarasota Crew. As I said, they're in lane 1. And as it starts to shape up, you see the bow there of Nashville with the gold hats. They're in lane 2. It does appear, we saw there that the bow in lane 3 is ahead of Nashville. That's Rose City. And we'll see where the other boats are. It looks like lane 6 ahead of lane 4 there. So lane 6 is Dallas United. Lane 4 is Moorestown. CRI right in between the two of them in the red. So those are your 6 boats here in the C final of the Women's Youth 8. Places 13 through 16 in the nation. In the Youth 8, it's Rose City out in front.
That's right. So just shy of 500 meters, it will be Rose City with their bow first across that line. Already with a 5-seat lead over Sarasota. Sarasota maybe 2 seats over Nashville. Top 3 boats right now, they're pushing themselves a little bit away and almost with open water over the remaining 3. So I think what we're going to see is 2 different races going on right now. Rose City, Nashville, and Sarasota for those top 3 spots. And then on the outside, Dallas United leading just slightly over Moorestown High School, and then CRI as your 6th place crew. All boats now approaching 750 meters gone.
Rose City really something to prove here in this second 500 because they're starting to move away and establish a pretty commanding lead over Sarasota Crew and Nashville. Those two boats are basically deadlocked and level in lanes 1 and 2. They're both from the southeast, so they raced each other at the Southeast Regional Championship. I think Nashville finished third. Sarasota Crew won it just barely over Capital City from Tallahassee. So those two are fighting it out for second and third place, but it's Rose City continuing to move away from the two with a full length out in front. And then it's on the outside, Dallas United still sitting in fourth place, slightly ahead of Morristown High School and CRI.
And now here's a little bit of open water for Rose City. They row out of Portland, Oregon, and they're doing a great job here, proving that that Northwest region is so strong. And they now have about 2 seats of open water over Sarasota and Nashville to come into the sea level final and the halfway point. So just shy of the halfway point. Rose City is your leader, but great racing here between Sarasota and Nashville, and pretty close. I'm going to give that slight advantage maybe to Nashville for the second place position, 1 to 2 seats over Sarasota, but then keeping our eye on Dallas United because they are still within contact to both Sarasota and Nashville. Continuing in fifth, it will be Morristown, and then CRI just a couple of seats behind Morristown in the 6th place position.
Yeah, so about a half a length for 4th, 5th, and 6th place. So you're right, there's kind of 2 races within the race, but it's Rose City pretty well out in front right now as they come through the halfway point of this race in the Women's Youth 8 here at the 2018 U.S. Rowing Youth National Championships. It's the Women's Youth 8C final. It is Rose City in your picture right now. You can see the amount of open water that they have as the camera pans back to Nashville, sitting in a solid second place there in lane 2, about 4 seats ahead of Sarasota Crew in lane 1. So those are your top 3 boats here charging toward us here at the finish line. And they're in the third 500 of this race at about 1,200 meters, about 800 to go. And you can see Sarasota Crew about 4 seats there behind Nashville. Nashville is in second place. Rose City really has a commanding lead moving away from the field here.
That's right. Nashville doing a nice job solidly into that second place position. Every stroke they take right now in this third 500 inches them just a little bit farther away from Sarasota. So they are really making a statement here and want to finish as high as they possibly can in this sea level final. So what's interesting to note is that Dallas United boat, they are really tenacious on that outside. And again, we've talked about it all afternoon. Bit of a disadvantage to be that far away from your closest competition. But that coxswain is really savvy, and I just saw the Sarasota coxswain look across at that Dallas United boat and know that they are a threat. So Dallas United really on a charge here. Nashville again, they're in second. Rose City way out in front, but Sarasota and Dallas United, they are now challenging each other for that third place position.
Yeah, starting to tighten up a little bit behind your 2 leaders. It is Rose City still well out in front, almost a length of open water now ahead of Nashville. And then it's tightening up between Dallas and Sarasota Crew. And connected with them is CRI just ahead of Morristown. So those are your 6 boats here as they approach or come through with your leaders. 500 to go. It's about 350 meters left for Rose City. What a commanding performance for Rose City trying to win this C final. Obviously, potentially some frustration, but forget about it. You just got to go out and win the race that's in front of you, and that's what they're doing in this C final, length ahead of open water ahead of Nashville. And look at that boat on the outside, Dallas United. They are really starting to close the gap.
That's right. So great job here by Rose City as they continue to extend their lead. Now 1 full boat length of open water, and it will be more most likely by that finish line. Instead, although Nashville is really pushing hard to stay ahead of both Sarasota and Dallas United. A little bit off the back, it will be Morristown High School. They have about a length over CRI. Coming into these final strokes, though, Rose City continues with their lead. 250 meters left for them before that finish line, doing a great job and making a statement here as they vie for that win in this sea level final. A little bit more than a length of open water as they come into the final strokes.
That's right, Rose City really rowing away with this thing. Rose City from Portland, Oregon, and they're going to take the C final and do it in style here ahead of the rest of the field. Nashville still sitting in second place, and it's very close between Sarasota Crew and on the outside Dallas United. I think Sarasota Crew with a slight advantage, but we'll see what happens as they come down to the tape. In the red, CRI sitting in 5th place, but it's Rose City finishing first here in the Women's Youth 8 C final.
And then too close to call right now between Sarasota and Dallas United. it's going to come all the way down to the tape for those two crews. Very, very close here on the buzzer. CRI coming into that 5th place position, and then Moorestown High School in 6th.
Beautiful overhead shot of our finish line here. And as we get back up to the top of the race course, on the race course is the C final, the men's lightweight youth 8 in lane 1, New Trier, lane 2, New Canaan, lane 3, Saugatuck, lane 4, Green Lake, lane 5, Chicago, and in lane 6, Sarasota Crew.
All right, and with that overhead shot, we're still very, very early on in this race, but you can see who has the quickest start, and that boat's going to be Green Lake. They have pushed themselves out as the early leader, but again, it's anyone's race right now as there's still quite a bit of overlap between crews. But Green Lake is your early leader, sitting maybe 2 seats over Saugatuck. Saugatuck, again, 2 seats over New Canaan and New Trier. A little bit off the back, just off of the start.
Here. We're 500 meters in now, and it is still Green Lake, maybe a deck, and then look how close it is between lanes 1 and 3, New Trier and Saugatuck.
That's right, and also Sarasota on the outside, so I'm taking a look at them and seeing if anyone is going to make a big jump here at that halfway point. That's what we're seeing all afternoon, is that that's the spot where people are making that decision to pull clear. And right now, it's almost 5 boats straight across. Green Lake still with a slight advantage, maybe just by a couple of inches over Saugatuck. Saugatuck maybe a half a seat over New Trier. New Trier 1 seat over New Canaan, and then Sarasota on the outside, also within that mix. Chicago continuing in 6th place position. And now, just in that time that I said that, Green Lake has now lost that lead, and Saugatuck is taking over as your new leader.
Yeah, Saugatuck maybe a foot over. I think 2nd place now is New Trier. So New Trier and Saugatuck and these 2 dark shells that you see at the top of the race course have pulled out from that early leader, Green Lake. So Green Lake not having as fast of a second 500 as they had in the first 500, but they're still pretty much dead level as Green Lake with New Canaan in lane 2. Sarasota Crew hanging tough in lane 6, about 3 or 4 seats behind those 2. But look at this, there's like 2 races right here that are dead level for 1st and 2nd, 3rd and 4th, and then Sarasota Crew only about 4 seats behind 3rd and 4th. And there's still connection for Chicago on Sarasota Crew.
Yeah, so definitely a change up from the beginning here. Saugatuck currently is your leader, and now New Trier in that 2nd place position, but both of those boats really right next to each other. So just coming across 1,000 meters right now, it will be Saugatuck at that mark with their bow first across the line, followed closely by New Trier. And then too close to call really between New Canaan and Green Lake for that 3rd or 4th place position. Sarasota, again, still hanging tough in that lane 6 with Chicago currently in 6th.
All right, beautiful shot, and just so it shows how much overlap we have in this field. Out in front, it continues to be Saugatuck, maybe 4 or 5 seats, maybe a half a length now on New Trier. Those are your top 2. But you can see the Saugatuck coxswain right in kind of the center of that New Trier boat in the camera, and right on in the bow deck of that Green Lake boat in lane 4. So Green Lake still with an advantage slightly over lanes 2 and 6. So it's Sarasota Crew trying to push their bow into our camera here, and New Canaan up there in lane 2. So it's still very close. And what are they gonna? Is it gonna shake out a little bit more in this 3rd 500? I don't know. New Trier is starting to go up front with Saugatuck now.
Yep, both of those boats pushing each other pretty hard. They've almost got a little bit of open water over the rest of the field between New Trier and Saugatuck. Saugatuck, I think, still with that slight lead over New Trier. So when we get that overhead shot, we'll be able to tell you exactly how far apart they are. But Green Lake's still in the mix, New Canaan still in the mix, Sarasota there. So really tight racing here as we come into the final 500 meters. So just shy of that point, I believe Saugatuck holding on to that lead, maybe a couple of seats over New Trier.
Yeah, New Trier made it close there for a minute, but now it's Saugatuck moving back out 3 or 4 more seats from where they were. So it is Saugatuck ahead of New Trier, and you can see that there's clear water back to this awesome battle. Green Lake and New Canaan are basically dead level, about 3 seats ahead of Sarasota Crew. Awesome race going on here. 500 meters to go in this men's lightweight youth 8 C final here at the 2018 U.S. Rowing Youth National Championships. Saugatuck in lane 3 with the lead over New Trier in lane 1. And then it's anybody's race between a bunch of boats here. You got Sarasota Crew in lane 6. In lane 4, you have Green Lake. In lane 2, you have New Canaan. They're all within about 10 feet of one another.
Right, Saugatuck doing a nice job here. Every stroke they take, they've got a couple of inches more away from New Trier. So as they come into the spectator area, they now are enjoying that 7-seat lead coming into the final 250 meters. But New Trier definitely with a good sprint in their engine. I'm sure that they're going to turn it on right now as we come past the spectator area. Both these boats now open water over the rest of the field. And then New Canaan pushing themselves into that third place position. But Sarasota also right there in lane 6, just flanking New Canaan for that third or fourth place spot. Green Lake also as well. They've fallen behind just a little bit, but they're still in it. So let's see, 250 meters to go. Who can pull it out? It is going to be Saugatuck holding on to that lead over New Trier, but New Trier winding it up for their final strokes.
And it's Sarasota Crew on the outside that might have taken it. It's very, very close. They had a big push there. They're trying to take over third place. I don't know if they're going to be able to do it over New Canaan, but it's going to be very close between those two boats. But out in front, going to take this thing. It's going to be Saugatuck finishing in first place in the C final. In second place, New Trier. And then, man, it's going to be a photo finish between Sarasota Crew and New Canaan. Sarasota Crew by about a deck over New Canaan. And then in fifth place is Green Lake, your early leader of this race. And in sixth, racing fans, Justified did just win the Belmont Stakes, so we have another Triple Crown winner. But we've got one more race here at the U.S. Rowing Youth National Championships, and it's going to be the men's Youth 8. Let me set the field for you before we get the camera up at the start line. In lane 1, we have Sammamish. Lane 2, Saugatuck. Lane 3, St. Joseph's Prep. Lane 4, Atlanta Junior. Lane 5, Dallas United. And in lane 6, we have Jesuit College Prep of Dallas.
And all crews still sitting at the start, awaiting the drop of the flag. So they're still making their slight adjustments. Again, we've got just a little bit of wind, not really that much to speak of, but something that might cause the bow people in the coxswain to have to work together to get that perfect alignment straight down the course so that they can have the perfect start, because this is going to be a hot race. These are some really storied crews. St. Joseph's Prep from Philadelphia, very strong. Sammamish also from the Northwest region, which is a very, very tough region. And here we go. We've got to start. Boats are going to be moving through that first 100 meters that we call the breakage area. So we're looking for clean starts, no equipment failures at all, and it looks like it is a clean race as we move into the first 250 meter mark.
Yeah, good start there from Prep in lane 3. They might have a slight advantage. Going with them is, looks like lanes 5 and 6, Dallas United, Jesuit College Prep, Sammamish in the mix, Saugatuck in the mix. Nobody really falling back. Maybe Atlanta Juniors falling back slightly from those 5 boats that are probably separated by 5 feet early on in this race. So all of these crews starting with very similar speeds. We have this beautiful air that looks from Philadelphia, and then still in the mix.
Away, no open water, and no one has pulled clear of each other because we're still pretty early on here. Sammamish with the lead.
Sammamish with about a 4-seat advantage over second place. I'm going to give to Saugatuck. Maybe has a deck over Prep, and then Prep has about a deck over, it really looks like lane 6, Jesuit College Prep of Dallas out there having a nice race. But you still have 5 boats basically connected. The only boat that might not be connected to your leader is the boat from maybe Dallas United there in lane 5, but everybody's still in the mix. So we'll see what happens in the middle 1,000 when it's really a lot of fitness and it's a lot of finding a good rhythm, good blade work down to the water into this headwind, and really just throwing the weight and leaving it all out here. It's the C final of the men's Youth 8 here for 2018.
All right, and so coming up to the halfway point, Sammamish really trying to pull themselves up to that bow ball. The coxswain asking for it as she comes up to the halfway point. So Sammamish pulling themselves up, full-length lead right now over Saugatuck. Saugatuck sitting maybe 5 seats over St. Joseph's Prep. Top top 3 boats right there. They are working really hard to pull themselves free of the remaining field. Jesuit College Prep still hanging tough out in lane 6. Atlanta Juniors in the 5th place position with Dallas United in 6th. But again, still contact between all of these boats.
Sammamish Coxon looking over, trying to break the overlap. I know that there's a little frustration winning the Northwest and then ending up in the C final, but that's what happens here at the U.S. Rowing Youth National Championships. It's Sammamish trying to break the overlap, trying to find some clear water here. Starting to push up a little bit is Prep, almost even with Saugatuck. So that's a really good battle for 2nd and 3rd place behind a full length advantage in lane 1 for Sammamish. In 4th place, it is the boat from Atlanta Juniors. And in 5th place is closest to the camera. That's Jesuit College Prep of Dallas, slightly ahead of their rival Dallas United. It's a good shot there of lane 6, Jesuit College Prep of Dallas. And these drone shots just unbelievable all weekend here at the U.S. Rowing Youth National Championships here at Lake Natoma. But out in front with open water now, clear of the field, is Sammamish.
All right, so working their fitness, working their technique. Water's calmed down just a little bit. Sammamish doing a nice job pulling clear of the rest of the field. So they now have that open water advantage. They can look back and again, just a feather in their cap and a lot of confidence as they take this sea-level final and leave behind Saugatuck and St. Joseph's Prep. So Saugatuck also doing a great job. 2 seats, maybe 3 right now over St. Joseph's Prep. Atlanta Juniors, they didn't have the quickest start, but they've been pretty patient and they've been right there in the mix here with just behind St. Joseph's Prep. So Atlanta Juniors in 4th, Jesuit College Prep on the outside. They were a little bit closer in, but now they've dropped back to that 5th place position. Dallas United continuing in 6th.
So it's a good shot there of your top 4 boats as they come into the last 500 meters of this race. It's Sammamish with about a half a length of open water in lane 1 ahead of this very close race still between Saugatuck and Prep. It's Saugatuck starting to pull away a little bit from Prep now, though, as they approach the finish line. They approach the red buoy line. 250 meters left in the last race of day 2 of the 2018 U.S. Rowing Youth National Championships. This is a men's Youth 8. And it's Sammamish, Liza Dixon's boys out in front here. 3/4 of a length of open water starting to pull away and make everybody row in their wakes. Look how close it is shaping up with Atlanta putting on a big finish here. Atlanta maybe even getting level or past Prep and trying to challenge that Saugatuck boat sitting in the 2nd place position. Awesome race as they come down. It's going to be, look at those 3 boats. Look how close they are. What an amazing shot that we have of Saugatuck basically dead level with Atlanta Juniors, about 4 seats ahead of that boat from Prep that was sitting in really 3rd place the whole time. Look at Atlanta trying to push up, but it is definitely a 2nd place for Saugatuck at the moment. Are they going to be able to hang on as Sammamish crosses the line first? A full length of open water ahead of Saugatuck. Saugatuck with a deck over Atlanta Juniors. Atlanta Juniors 3 seats over Prep. What a finish to our day here. In 5th place on the outside, Jesuit College Prep of Dallas ahead of Dallas United. Awesome race to finish it, Adrian. That was day 2 of the U.S. Rowing Youth National Championships here at Lake Natoma.
And we'll be back tomorrow, 8 o'clock. We'll have our petite level finals and grand finals. Those are not to be missed. So we hope you've enjoyed this level of racing even in the sea-level finals. Really something to watch, always exciting. Have a great afternoon. Enjoy the beauty of Lake Natoma. Go for a walk along that bike path and shake the legs out and get the adrenaline out. We'll see you tomorrow.